Round 6 of the Friday Endurance Championship brings us to Nurburgring in Germany for another 2-hour battle. Pro and High Silver here in action today again. Hello, everybody, and welcome to RCI TV. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Joshua Devonshire and Stewie on the broadcast with you for what should be a very entertaining, albeit abbreviated grid for the sixth round today. Joshua, always a pleasure to have you here and have you back for the championship. And it has been a wild few weeks.
Has been. I'm really glad to be back. And Nurburgring, what what a track! I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. Kind of in the boat, a little bit sad, we're not on the Nordschleife, but we can make do with this one. You said a very abbreviated grid, and looking at things, that is most certainly the case. So 16 drivers today, and most of them in the pro class, so it's all to play for. It's going to be it's quite compact track, quite a compact grid, so we might see some, well, hopefully we'll see some really good racing.
Hopefully so. We had 18 on the grid a moment ago, and now we're down to 16. We've had a disqualification, I'm being told, by the stewards due to joining with custom liveries. That's a no-no at RCI. Unfortunately, and it has historically led to disqualifications. I'm unsure if it's a disqualification from the series or the race, but either way, they will not be taking part here today, and that's unfortunate because that drops us down an additional car. The positive, perhaps, that you can take away from the smaller grid is this championship for the first half of it was a bit scrappy. That's the word I'm going to use. It was a bit scrappy, but it did calm down. It was just Stewie and myself a week ago at Bathurst, and we were surprised at how good the racing was. In fact, came down to several last lap passes in that race, including for the high silver win. And it could be that kind of day. Nürburgring always seems to bring that magic where the field spreads out during the race, but a lot of them, they come back together at the end, and a lot of strategy that you can use in a 2-hour race around this joint that can get you track position.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. I mean, you got, I've said this before at certain tracks as well. There's a massive range of corners. I mean, looking at Svencheck coming down into T1 right now, you have to really nail the braking spot, really, really tight. And going into the stadium section, it's a little bit more flowing, but not much. But by the time you get to the Schumacher S's, to each car that we've got on the grid, I mean, looking at things, we've got the 199 and the 8 Porsche, we've got the 141, the 70 Bentleys, and the 185 Aston Martin. That seems to have been making the odd appearance here and there as well. Different corners do play to different cars' strengths. So, a track like this, anything is possible.
Lewis Edwards in chat actually asking for a clerical reason on why custom liveries are not allowed. Number one, they're not technically supposed to be implemented in the sim to begin with, but our practical reasoning for not allowing them is that they do cause massive stutters if they were to connect, disconnect, and stuff like that. But there's also another reason for that you may not be aware of. It almost breaks the broadcast. We cannot use replay functionality and certain other tools that we have to bring you a quality broadcast. It does that as well. So for all those reasons, for driver security, lag, and all of that, and of course the broadcast itself, custom liveries are not allowed. Custom liveries, by the way, we don't mean the in-game custom liveries that you make with the color editing tool. Those are fine. We're talking about true custom liveries where you make your own car and then you upload it. It's a whole thing. Those are what we're talking about. You can absolutely make your own in-game custom livery and join just fine. As a matter of fact, almost everybody in this field has done that. But that's the reason for that. As practice ends, and we have regained, by the way, all 18 of our drivers, a couple of last-minute changes. I was talking to the stewards, Joshua, and they are enforcing the first driver join rule here. I think it's been a bit, I mean, it's always been a thing, but I think it's been a bit sloppy recently and it's caused some issues. So they're heavily enforcing that. They're looking to make sure that driver number one is the one that's joining first. Of course, the reason that is a thing is because it can sort of break a team and causes all sorts of problems in itself. So there's a lot of technical things that you have to get right to race in an endurance championship with a driver chain.
And it's just little things here and there, and it does just mean that it's the best experience for everyone involved, all the teams, because we have seen issues in the past in previous races, and it's not what you want to see. Especially if a team's fighting for a championship, especially, but you don't want to see it to anyone, as qualifying is about to begin. So, working on with the 782 Bentley of Croydon. Just on an out lap at the moment. So looking at practice, dare I say the Porsches seem very, very quick around here, but we'll have to see what the Bentleys can pull out.
Well, I am not sure what to expect here. Bentleys have never been too strong here in many of the races that we've done recently, so I'm not entirely sure what we're going to get. I almost expect the McLarens and the Porsches to be rather strong, at least at the start of a run, and the Astons to be pretty consistent throughout. But we'll see. The strength of these Bentleys may overpower what we know as the normal norm around here. In fact, we are missing a couple of manufacturers that I think could be pretty potent as well, but qualifying will and certainly show us who is just about the quickest here. I am talking about cars that should be fast here. I am shocked there's no Audis.
That's actually a really, really good point. We're watching a replay. Is this a replay at the moment?
Nope.
I'll have to wait for just a moment. Okay, so just a second. Right. Okay, cool. So going down on a flying lap with it is Croydon, but yeah, no, I think you're right, Jesse. The lack of Audis is certainly interesting. Usually very, 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 very strong around here, but with the current balance of performance as well, with the current ball, we have seen the Bentleys be stronger than what we'd otherwise expect. So it's going to be an interesting.
It sure will, as they enter or they exit the arena section and go out onto the circuit proper. Those first couple of quarters, so very tricky, but so very important. And now the run down the hill. You're going down the hill. You're falling away this entire time. It's not a flat track around here, mind, as we will go into what was once known as the Dunlop hairpin. I have no idea if it's still called that. And then up into the Schumacher S's, one of the most fun section of corners that you can have on any racetrack. That is, of course, unless you get it wrong, then it becomes some of the most frustrating. But through the Schumacher S's now, got to hit the outside curb. You got to know where you are and get back to the inside, but you don't want to get too far to the inside because it'll throw you back on the outside, and there's sand on the outside. You don't want to get there. Then get as much as you can on the exit. Now through the left-hander and then the right-hander and down what is often referred to as the back straightaway or the backstrecke, but it is not that. It is not straight at all. In fact, there is an elbow right here. You'll be taking this flat out and trying to drift as far as you can over, not scrub speed, and brake as late as you dare. We are using the GT chicane, as is always compulsory here in ACC. No F1 shenanigans in the final turn here. You got to get as close to the wall as you can, though it's not necessarily that important. You can go several lines through the final quarter and get a quick lap, and the first lap does go on the board. Frozen with a 55.119 and sets immediately, gets within 5/10 of a second, but 5/10 of a second, I should say. And all of a sudden, Rins Crozen goes to the top of the board for Danglin Wang Racing at a 54.453. Willamont in second place in the high silver battle, 3/10 off of the pace. I suspected with some of the omissions of some of the other manufacturers here that Porsche might have something to say in qualifying, and they've shown up early.
Yeah, I mean, very, very very tight track and very lots of downforce at the Porsche. Obviously, it's one of the few cars in the grid, I think, besides the AMG that does have the front splitter option as well. So, no, for especially corners coming through like this and coming down into the hairpin. Or, yeah, coming down into the hairpin. You can set the car up a little bit easier, you know, to kind of deal with those those types of situations. But how is it going to fare in the race? Because traditionally with aerodynamics, you know, you do get quite a lot of dirty air with the Porsche. It's very hard to follow a car closely. So is it going to be a case of these Porsches are ahead but have to hold on to that position, as we see Max Goprov going in with a 153.781, their first flying lap, and that is 6/10 faster than Kreuzen. So that is a significant gap as we see the Bentley come to a stop. The 70 Bentley, however, going through the chicane now. How will they respond? Very, very big onto the curb. Sparks flying from the bottom of the car. Is it a invalidation? I don't know if it is. I'd imagine so. But coming across the line, will they improve? And they will. That's P3, but still a second behind the 119 Porsche.
That was a good job by the 199 at GoPro to get that fast lap. They certainly need a pick-me-up. It's not been a storybook season for them. And the championship leaders briefly go into third place, but Mikowski ends up beating them. I'm so rarely right in RCI streams, but I feel pretty vindicated now. I said Porsche and McLaren might have the best shot, and it's 2 Porsches and a McLaren so far. But it is ever so long until the checkered flag here in qualifying. Just about half of that time gone. The 53.781 by GoPro is the mark to beat. Rins Kreuzen's 0.3 off of that pace. Mikowski a further 2.5 back, and then it gets very close between him and Koroshavin before it opens up again to Seats, who's again trying to chase down that championship. Morgan McCall slots into the 6th place position, and Martin Lawrence, who had a decent day, mind you, in GT4's one day ago, goes to 7th overall. Grant Wilmot still first in high silver over Hawa in the 722. And championship leader Strappa all the way back in 16th place and off the podium in high silver there. I suspect that's not all the 185 team has.
Not either, and the 199 improving even still by about a 10th or 2 that lap. And you know, with the 70 Bentley, I mean, see, you guys know me by now. I mean, I have a bit of a thing for the Bentley. It is my favorite car on the grid. And no, I think you are right, Jesse. It seems to be that they are struggling around here, as we see the other Kreuzen go into 5th place, but then immediately knocked down to 6th. Still 4/10 off GoPro's pace, but the 70 Bentley slotting in nicely into P2. Koroshavin putting the 141 Bentley into P2, knocking sights down to P3. Still 4/10 off the time of GoPro. So still a lot of time to make up, but 6 minutes left to do it. And will they find the time?
Being told that maybe the 404 was a bit naughty on that first lap. Lewis Dykes may have gotten punted off the track by the 404. Stewards won't like that too much if that happens. Of course, this series is, as always, live stewarded, and they are looking for incidents in qualifying, and they won't like that. They won't like a car being impeded or roughing up another car. They do take into account if the car's on a flying lap or is sort of just pedaling around, but they'll investigate that, and curious to see if we'll have a pre-race sort of stewarding decision, as we occasionally have. But yes, Lewis Dykes apparently being removed from the racetrack at some point. That's not something you would expect to see with only 18 cars or 18 teams here.
It's not really expect at all. And I mean, if a car is, if you're quicker than the car ahead, if they're on a lap, they're on a lap. You know, they are in, you know, racing rules do dictate that they are entitled to that lap. So, I mean, hopefully there's nothing egregious going on there. But as you say, Jesse, that is one for the stewards. Taking a look at things now, we have the 73 Renwelton Esports McLaren, a team that's done fairly well in the season so far. They are currently, was this the 73, 73, they are currently 2 tenths up on their time coming down into the chicane. And can they keep that momentum going? In the mark, hitting the curb just as you should. A little bit of opposite lock coming down onto the exit, coming into the final turn. Get the late apex, get on the power as soon as possible. Run the car wide onto the curb, not onto the sand. Is it enough? What have they been able to pull out? And that will be, I believe it's in P5.
It is indeed P5, a 54.087, an improvement on the sheet, but not the position. So doing a little better is a 73 after missing last week. And I noticed Dykes' 73 car is not Excel Racing by Renwelton this week. It is just Renwelton Esports. So maybe there was some sort of promotion, or maybe they joined the Renwelton team. We've been told before that Excel Racing by Renwelton is a separate entity from Renwelton, but this week they appear to be a part of Renwelton Esports. So interesting for that. Of course, last week none of the Excel Racing by Renwelton teams took part at the Mountain, which unfortunately seemingly eliminated them from championship competition. But some of the what were known as Excel by Renwelton teams are back this week to compete again, as we suspected they might. Minnow Crozen has a lot of work to do in the 782, all the way down outside the top 10. And of course, there is a high silver car in between him and the rest of his pro field as he goes a little off there. That might have been an invalidation, and even if it wasn't, that's going to be a very ugly lap. We're going to get another look at this, see exactly what went wrong into the chicane. Trying to get on the brakes as late as you possibly can. Just too much on the inside there.
Yeah, those curbs on the inside, those curb stones, you really got to be careful. I mean, you know, we've spoken about the Bentley before and how well it can mount curbs, but it has its limit. And you know, if it does that to the boat, what's it going to do to the other cars during the race? I mean, it's a 2-hour race, and you know, you have to go through that chicane every single lap. So I'd imagine we're going to see that catch at least one person out. We've also been talking about Les Stropper in P9, big train of pro cars behind the silver, so that's a monumental lead for the lead of silver if that stays the way it does. Still 2 minutes and 20 seconds to make anything of it, and you've got Grant Willimart. If he can say anything about it going across the line, that is P7, which then puts 2 cars between him and Stropper going ahead of Stropper. So, you know, it's kind of seems a bit of a curse. You know, you talk about how well one person does, and then it all falls apart.
Yes, indeed. Of course, we are reading the chat as we always do here on RCI TV. We value your input. Robert McCall says, we almost didn't make it again due to load shedding in South Africa. Boy, you can tell winter is over in South Africa when the load shedding begins. Am I right, Robert? Anyway, moving on. Lewis Edwards says, they are indeed part of Renwelton now. Lewis is waiting for his Fanatec DD2 being fixed by Fanatec for the last 2 races and didn't fancy racing on a controller. Well, welcome back, the 73 team and Dykes, and I hope that your nice DD2, I hope it serves you well this evening. It already has done, as you're inside the top 5. Excellent news all around. Mazel tov, as they say, as nobody has been able to rival the mark of GoProv, who literally has more than, 5 or 6 tenths in the bank over Koroshaven. The Ballas Esports Ukraine team won't really care. They're not racing the 199. The 199 is so far back in points they don't care. All the 199 wants to do is get a pole position, win a race. All the 141 wants to do is continue this immaculate run of races that they've had in, well, for the past month. It seems like they've just had fantastic races, and they're doing that. They're beating the team that they need to beat. That is the number 70 Bentley. And, well, one position in front of them means that you're gaining points on them. So job done there, at least right now. 30 seconds left in the quali session. This high silver battle for qualifying supremacy has been very interesting. Strappa had a massive lead in that. That was until Grant Willamont set an absolute blistering lap in his 100 Porsche that put him back in the lead of high silver class. That's incredible stuff. Max Goproff, by the way, he may have 5 tenths in the bank, but he's still out there getting after it.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right, Jesse. I mean, even with the pole position, you don't, in these situations, you don't really let off. I don't think it's in a competitor's nature to really let anything off. Those who go big onto the curb, onto the entrance of the chicane there, going wide on the exit, but it's not going to matter. That is still valid and actually up on their time currently, but can they hold it to the line? I think they will. They'll go slightly faster, still only 6.5 tenths quicker than Cora Shaven. But I mean, I say only, but that's a significant gap if you are dependently behind. It's a good chunk of most of a second. So around a track like this, that does make all of the difference. But can can the 199 team hold on to that for, as I say, the best part of 2 hours? The strategy comes into play, weather comes into play, as well as just the pace of the two drivers in the car. So anything can happen. Don't discount anybody in this race so far. As we see the number 6, the 627 McLaren come across the line. Will that be an improvement? I don't think it will. They will stay in sixth place, 0.741 tenths behind the pole sitting car. You have Lawrence coming around now, crossing the line, going into, I believe that just going into seventh place, still 8 tenths behind. So cars finishing the laps, and the top three seem to have settled, but it's still provisional for the time being.
Yeah, it sure is. Kylo in chat says the 199 just collecting points by getting pole, and right you are. GoPro getting points, and they're not in the championship fight, but it doesn't necessarily matter as Lewis Dykes with his new DD2 that has been fixed goes third quickest. And that will also make the 141 happy as well. That puts a car between them and their nearest championship rival as that ends qualifying. A spirited qualifying that saw a change there right at the end. Though it is difficult to see how anybody is going to be able to keep up with that 199. If that's what Porsche Spinella Racing has, it's going to be difficult to keep up with them. Well, this is round 6 in the championship, which means we have some championship points for you. And this is how it is shaken out for the first 5 rounds. Team Ballas Ukraine in the 141 at 255 points. Volante Racing in the 70 is second on 219, about 39 or so points between them. And keep in mind, you get 65 points for a win, so very much still in it. The 911, like and subscribe, AMR Vantage 184 will look to continue to fend off the front left tire scrubber Esports 782 Bentley that has 171, 10 points behind them. And in fifth place, Danglin Wang Racing Porsche at 161, who, by the way, is tied for fifth with Excel Racing by Renwelt and Turquoise. I don't think the 72 is here today. So that tie will certainly be broken one way or another. And then, of course, Excel Racing by Renwelt and Orange 71. I didn't see them either, but they have 159. You know who is here, though? The Excel, actually, what are just known as Renwelt and Esports now, 73 in that McLaren. They have 150, and they could go, goodness me, they could jump all the way inside the top 5 with their starting position. And if they run well today, imagine that going from 8th to about 5th. The 501, Forza Italia PLE Sports Ferrari 146 and Green Loftus Engineering 107 Bentley at 129. And these are the teams in the Pro Championship that have either missed races or have struggled just a bit. The 837, of course, on 124. 1 point behind them is the Porsche Spinella Racing team. Yes, folks, that is what that says in the 199. They're on pole here today. And speaking of jumping up in the standings, a good run from them could see them somewhere in the top 10 at the end of today. They've already gained points. They're already about 11th now that I think about it, with the pole position points that they've gotten. Carbon Sim Sport in the 627 at 101, and then it gets very close for the next couple. Connection Loss Racing 404 and the Silver Racing team, only separated by a handful of points. Excel Racing by Renwelt and White in the 74. I don't think I saw them either. The ATK Academy 40 for Mercedes on 50 points, 2 points in front of the ACCSS Superstars in the 7. And then the Desperate Measures 555 team and the Jardier Community Team Fringlish round out the top 20. All very close there, just a handful between them. And the back half of the grid, these are the teams that are likely taking no further part. And then we go to the high silver battle here. It hasn't been too much of a battle for Balasso Squadra Corsa. They have been fantastic. And even last week, where it looked like they were going to play second fiddle to somebody else in the final lap, they somehow summoned up the CISO, as they would say, to take the lead. Absolutely incredible stuff and win that race. So even when they don't look at their best, they still can get it done. 305 is their mark. High Speed Ninjas in the 95 at 269. Turn 1 Pro Am at 249. Turn 1 Honda Pro Am at 202. Rounding out the top 5 is TSE Board Dads in the 166, who is a little bit further behind with 178. They are racing Team Volmont by Prime Motorsports in the 271. Turn 1 Silver 101, just 1 point behind them in 7th. AOSP in the 722, 4 behind Turn 1 Silver, and just 10 behind them goes Toblerone. And a little bit farther back is the Volante Racing Academy number 3. Of course, High Silver, which is normally really competitive this season, we actually had less entries than we normally would. And these are the teams that, of course, are no longer taking part. Well, it's going to be an interesting day's racing here. 2 different classes. We're coming down to the end of the season here. There'll be a couple of races after this, and there's nothing settled in either class, Joshua. Anybody could still win it. You wouldn't wish bad luck on anybody, but if one of the top teams were to struggle here, it would bring some of the other teams back in, and you would just hate that for some of these guys. Palazzo and Ballas, for instance, that have been so dominant and so good. All that consistency, all those wins, podiums, all those stats goes out the window with just one bad race.
Yeah, the real work kind of begins, I mean, if it didn't begin before, it definitely begins now. Just trying to keep that momentum going, really. Just, try not to let anything kind of happen in front of you. Just try and keep a clear head and try to keep ahead of the field as best as you can. As you say, any slip from any of the top teams today will bring other teams into contention. So, I mean, it is Nurburgring. Again, it's not the tightest track that we've been on, but it's still pretty going that kind of way in terms of track width and the amount of cars that we have. So, I think it's going to be a case of self-preservation for the most part.
Well, we talk about the weather quite a lot. It doesn't look great, but it is ominous, but nothing falling now. For those of you that may be new to the series, let's break it down for you. It is a 2-hour race with a mandatory pit stop in the middle. You would have to pit regardless, but the mandatory pit requirement is only that you make a driver change. Each team made up of at least 2 drivers, and this is a team championship, not an individual championship. So when we refer to the championship, you may have been confused that we refer to the number on the car instead of the driver. Well, that's because obviously it is a team championship. The 141 that starts second today leads that championship over the 70, as we showed you. And it's been pretty smooth sailing for Team Ballas Ukraine, you have to say. It wasn't always like that, but they pretty quickly got their footing and have not relented. Even when they haven't looked like the strongest car, they've still gotten a really decent result. Thirds, second places, a lot of podiums, some wins as well. And beyond that, all of the great driving from some of these teams, the great racing, has covered up a very interesting statistic that we have yet to have a repeat winner in the pro class.
That is actually, yeah, no, that is actually really interesting because considering how tight it's been, you would have expected there to have been some amount of consistency between teams and drivers. But I mean, you can't say that the this championship hasn't jumbled things up a little bit. I mean, yes, we do have a couple of top teams kind of leading the way, but it's not been completely out of contention for other cars as well. I mean, since Kyalami, we've seen not want to say upsets, but definitely results that we wouldn't have expected otherwise. The we had an Aston Martin at Kyalami do pretty well, and that's one thing that neither of us, me or Jesse, it's neither of us expected that one. So maybe something will surprise us today.
Well, the stats look like this. Team Boss Ukraine has 3 podiums and a win. And the next nearest team that is close, like and subscribe in the 911, they have 3 podiums and a win. But of course, like and subscribe have 2 signouts, which is why they are so far out of this championship right now. The wins are every 5 races, 5 different winners. Team Ballas Ukraine, Volante Racing, like and subscribe. Excel Racing by Renwelton Turquoise has won a race, and I think Excel Racing by Renwelton Green has won a race as well. And I think if you add all that up, that's 5 wins. The thing about Team Ballas, though, that is very interesting to me, they haven't got a single pole position this season. They haven't needed to.
I mean, it goes to show that sometimes just kind of consistent race pace is kind of, the more ultimately the most important thing. Sure, you lose out on points for the pole position, but sometimes it's not really all that needed. Just having good racecraft, keeping it on the road, and 2 hours is a long time for a race. So being able to kind of keep kind of some pace going towards the end, when your tires have dropped off and the fuel in the car's running low. Just being able to keep the car going in suboptimal conditions makes all the difference.
And if you're wondering what team has the most poles, well, it's the number 70. They have 2 poles, and everybody else has 1. So 6 pole sitters so far this season, and 2 for the number 70. Well, the teams are getting ready to do battle for 2 hours. Mandatory pit stop with the driver change. There's no fuel requirement or tire requirement. We know it's going to be cloudy for the next 30 minutes. 28 degrees C track and ambient. Track is optimum. It's just about time to go racing on a Friday night. Wherever you are, we hope that you're well. We thank you for joining us here as we get ready to go, as we line them up 2 by 2 down the front straightaway here at the Nurburgring. As we get ready to go racing in Germany, the flagman waves the green flag in an immediate cover by the 199 Ryan Renoir in that car. Covers up Team Ballas. Ballas going down to the inside as they're going to be 3 wide going down into turn 1 as they all accordion together, but no major contact, if any minor contact, as they get through that. And look at that, a new leader, Koroshaven, has taken the lead. An excellent start from the 141, and that will be just about all they have to do to take the lead. Now, we know in qualifying that Porsche was quicker, but will it be quicker in race trim?
Possibly, we'll have to find out. But looking further down the order, it wasn't entirely clean going through turn 1, all down into turn 3 for the 782 Bentley, who made contact and got spun around, and I believe now are running, in last place. But we'll have to see what they can do to make up through the field. Looking at a replay now, just got a little bit helped round a little bit. It's not the smoothest of race starts, but not race ending. We'll have to see what they can do. The number 3 Aston Martin, the 199 very obviously was the pole sitter, and you were saying obviously in race trim what can be done. I did have an assumption that getting through the Porsche was going to be important. And can the Porsche keep up with the dirt? Yeah, very big.
Grant Willamont here. Contact maybe, or just a pass?
Oh, a little bit of a help.
No?
Oh, that's into the wall. Yeah, that was.
I don't think he touched him.
I don't know. It certainly looked like it. At least maybe just a little bit of net code.
Okay, I'm being told he definitely touched him. I need to get my glasses.
Maybe just a little, Jesse. That's the thing about it. We have a dynamic. I'm honest with you. It's like.
Listen, folks at home. I'm old.
I thought there was going to be more onto that one, but
Oh, cool. I thought for one second there Lucas Dykes was going to get into Ryan Renoir. It doesn't happen. Excellent driving there. And this battle does continue. Morgan McCall now trying to get by Rince Crozen. Now that's a battle. I mean, it was a battle for the McCalls just to get to track today because of load shedding in South Africa. And well, they fixed their. I'm pretty sure they fixed their ISP issue they were having over the winter there. Oh, contact there as it's going to send Renoir really wide. Oh, he won't appreciate that. The pole sitters coming down the order.
Yeah, no, just a bit of a brave move going side by side. I mean,
oh, it was a couple of touches.
Yeah, it just squeezed a little bit too far. It's really difficult to judge how much space to leave a car through here, and it's always kind of gutsy overtaking on the outside of that corner. But at the same time, you know, Renoir has lost the position to the, I believe it's at the 70 Bentley as well. So, you know, I can't imagine they'd be too happy with that, with the 627 breathing right down their neck. And again, I mean, McLarens do seem to have a fair bit of pace here, but something I've noticed about our pole sitters, Jesse, there has been a driver change between qualifying and the race. So I'm wondering if that is going to play into some kind of strategy that they have for the next hour and a bit.
Yeah, it's certainly something we've seen. It's certainly tactics as Rince trying to go up the inside of Mikowski doesn't quite have the gap there. It is interesting to see that, and it does happen. It is allowed, by the way. Some may be wondering. That is allowed. The driver that qualified the car doesn't necessarily have to start the race. There's a procedure, of course, that you have to go through to change driver post-qualifying, but as long as you fulfill that requirement, it makes no difference. And I think the reasoning is you put your hot lap driver in there, yeah, for qualifying, perhaps, as there's been more incidents and falling through the field. Is that Porsche? Oh, I see, and it causes chaos here, and that could have been way more ugly than it actually was. But it ends up being okay. Was that Grant Willamont, by the way, in the 100? Was that the pole sitter in high silver? I think it must have been.
Yeah, the 100, the blue and green, very distinctive color combination of the Porsche. And yeah, no, you are completely correct in thinking that, Jesse. That is the 100 Porsche that has lost out due to that. So,
Oh dear.
obviously, Martin Lawrence, I believe, was sat further up as well in the 404 Mercedes. So at some point in time, it looks like they have also lost out along the way. So some drivers having to play catch up, you know, make some kind of damage limitation.
Oh, Brian Scheckerman!
Scheckerman facing the wrong direction. What happened here coming through? I think this is the S's, runs a little bit wide, catches it, snaps, and that is sent round. And luckily didn't hit anything, but has lost time due to that. And just it leaves so much work to try and catch up to the rest of the pack.
Well, that was second place in high silver, and that is a tough pill to swallow for Scheckerman in the 95. Going back to the Volante Racing team, the number 3 team with Ollie Moss behind the wheel, that team, if they did not have bad luck, they wouldn't have any luck at all. My heart goes out to them. That was a rough start. Speaking of a rough start, by the way, both of our pole sitters in both classes have free fallen through the order so far in this race. Incredible stuff. I wouldn't have called that, but then again, it is an RCI TV race. It does certainly happen more often than it doesn't. It's unpredictable stuff. You cannot write if you did write this, they'd say it's not believable. So riding on board on the roof of the 199, Ryan Renoir looking back at Mikowski in the 627, who has a line behind him. I think that's Ritz Crozen, Morgan McCall, and Wichak actually all together. And in fact, it is all of those cars in a line here. You got to wonder if Renoir is holding them up a little bit or what. I don't think they're quite close enough to be to that point yet, but certainly a pack forming. Shaven leading the race in the 141. He also leads the championship. Rossi in the 185 leading in the race. Guess what? Broken record. Also leading the championship. If you're a championship leader coming into round 6 and it's lap 3, you're feeling pretty good about your chances.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, the race isn't over until it's over. And looking on the back of the 722, we see absolute chaos in the grass there. Look what happened here. Looks like Bentley's coming up. Little bit of a tap sends them both around. The cars, it's the 100 Porsche and the 404 of Lawrence trying to find a way around. And cars driving onto the grass to try and turn around safely, which, to be fair, loses time, but rather than taking out somebody else coming around the corner. I mean, but no, it's a good time to be a championship leader at this point in time, but a lot of tension and a long way to go. An hour, 1 hour 50 minutes, we're only 10 minutes into the race, so it's not over till it's over, Jesse.
No, it isn't. You have to run the laps. We saw that a week ago. A team had a massive lead. We thought that they won't get there in time to. They won't get run down in time, and well, it did happen. You can't lose your focus. It doesn't matter if you have a big lead or not. You have to maintain your sort of tempo, your vigilance, keep yourself aware, and your pace. The second that you let off, you invite trouble. And speaking of trouble, this is Morgan McCall's splitter. Looking at the back of Rins Crozen in his number 8 Porsche, right up in front of him is Mikowski. So we looked at the rear wing of Renoir back at these cars. Now we're looking at Morgan McCall's car forward and what he sees as it could be a pass around the outside here for Mikowski. It's going to be a difficult and a long old way, as my friend Ryan Mawson likes to say, but he might just get it. He was able to hang right there, and he's going to get the position. Oh, he's going to get turned. Ryan Renoir is going to get turned by Rins Crozen, and he's out of the middle. Renoir is gone.
No. I mean, a race just going from bad to worse for the 199 team. Just watch this again, right onto the switchback. It seems to be that, just tries to make a bit of an opportunity of it, but not able to make it happen, and just running out of room. I can't imagine Renoir would have really anticipated another car coming through at that point in time, focusing so much on the battle. I believe with it was the 627. So, that's terrible luck for the 199 so far this race.
Oh my goodness! And for the pole-sitting car, there's not a lot of damage, but the damage has been done on the scoreboard. From pole position to 14th overall, it has been a devastating affair. By the way, I think something has happened to Hawa in the 722. They were running second in high silver, and now they're in 4th place. Ali Moss, who was dead last in this race on lap 2, is now 3rd in high silver, and Grant Willamont is all the way back up into the 10th place position and 2nd in class. And that's right, we did see the 722's accident. That was the car that was taken out whenever the other car climbed the curb. So that is what indeed happened there. So 722 all the way back to 4th place. Scheckerman is running last in that class, and Ali Moss, who had a nightmare of a start by virtue of being the first car to have an issue, is back on the podium.
Yeah, it's also worth noting as well, the 44, the McCall car has a 15-second time penalty, and I'm wondering if that was something to do with the qualifying potential, I don't want to say infringement, but potential penalty added on from any decisions made then. I can't confirm that just yet, but they do have the 15-second time penalty on the board, as we see in Menno Kreuzen in the 782 Bentley just breezed past, I believe, Jazabowski in the 501 Ferrari.
Well, a lot of talking points in the first 12 minutes of this race, and a big old penalty coming out for the 44 as Paul Jarzabowski riding on board with him, a car off in the dirt in front of him.
I believe that was the 4-4 of Lawrence, right? There, yes, it was.
Indeed. a wild ride, and penalties coming out. I will tell you that the stewards talked to us a time or two. They were a bit disappointed with 18 cars, how much carnage there was in the first couple of laps. As racing action does continue as they stack them all up. And easy, boys. You don't want to get involved in any more extracurricular activities here. But no further action for minor contact between the 199 and the 73. No further action for minor contact between the 199 and the 73. And no, that wasn't me repeating myself. That happened in two different turns on lap 2. Warning for car 199 for squeezing the 73, making door-to-door contact. Once again, not repeating myself, that is still on lap 2, but in a subsequent corner. 15-second penalty for car 44 for taking out car 100 with position not returned. That on lap 1, turn 8. And that's as far as we've gotten. But considering the hornet's nest that is the steward's box right now, I don't think it's the last, Josh.
Now, I think we are going to see more coming roughly 15 minutes into the race. And, I'm going to get the joke out the way early. The 44 AMG blessed with the 15-second penalty.
Oh, he's going to run him off the track. I thought for a second there Ryan Woodwall was going to run Zarzabowski off the track, and he almost did, but he got cleared just in time. Look at this replay. Oh, I thought he was going for one, Josh.
Oh, the flashing, and I cannot say that I blame them. That was a very aggressive way of getting by, and I understand that Renoir must be quite frustrated at this point. I mean, who wouldn't be after the kind of race that the 199's been through? But at the same time, racing rules do still apply, and you have to bear that in mind. And that was a very, very, very tight squeeze through, and it was barely on. But I mean, provided there was no contact there, I mean, I can't really say there's anything too far wrong with it, other than it being a little bit aggressive.
Ooh, boy, we were riding on board with Martin Lawrence, and I saw that, and I'm like, there's no way they make it through that right-hander. But they did somehow, although a bit forcefully. Be curious to see what the stewards think about that, because certainly that'll have shown up because there was contact. I wonder if they're willing to let that go because it came off, or if they're not willing to let that go because it was a bit elbows out. Stewarding is a bit like a mood. It sometimes changes ever so slightly because you know what they say, rules are open to interpretation. And well, in Renoir's case, he interpreted that there was space to make that pass, and to his credit, he was right. There was.
Yeah, I mean, just a little 911 sized hole, just to put that car in, and he did it. So going back onto Cora Shaven now. Speaking of Cora Shaven in the race and the race leaders so far, and we haven't checked on them in a little bit, it seems to be that they are pulling away. So with that clear round, with Renoir having all the bad luck in the world apparently, it kind of gives them a chance to basically run away, not just with the race, but with the championship just that little bit more after this round, if they can keep this up. I mean, still a long way to go, as I keep saying. So looking at Witschek at the moment in the number 1 Bentley, wanting to make up as much as they can, chasing down on the number 8 Porsche. So again, are we seeing in race pace, are the Bentleys quicker than the Porsche, but are the Porsches quicker in qualifying trim? And it will unfold over the course of the race. As far as I'm aware, the Bentleys are more fuel efficient, so that might play into their advantages as time goes on, but it's not all up for, well, it's all up for grabs, but it's not all written just yet.
Yeah, and I've got bad news. That gap was 2 seconds, and now it's 1.6 between Korshaven and Dykes, and I expected the McLarens to be pretty darn strong here, and they weren't for the first 5 laps, as that gap ended up being 2 seconds, but now it's coming back the other way. Dykes in the 73, and again, another half of a tenth in that sector. That gap, folks, for the lead is coming down, and what's even more impressive is Dykes doing that with Dimitrov right behind him in the number 70. So very close racing, and it's going to get a little closer up front. And by the way, Grant Willamont, after all the strife that they've had, they're only about a second behind the leader in high silver.
Yeah, it's all to play for, and so I mean, it's all to. As I was just saying, it's all to play for anyway. But everyone will be trying to stop the championship leaders from running away a little bit further with it. I mean, everyone will be wanting to catch up as best they can, and there is still time to do it in the championship standings. Looking at which deck at the moment, again, still trying to make something happen with that number 8, and very, very closely followed by the McCalls as well. We've seen the McCalls, we've seen how good they are for defending, so it's kind of refreshing to see them on the attack. And it just seems to be that the AMG is losing out, and it doesn't seem to be the most popular car on the grid. Only two, I believe, we've seen the entire season: the 404 and the 44. So maybe trying to make the most of a bad situation.
Ivan in chat earlier said that the race started right after I put the kid to sleep. I love it when things work out like that. I do that a lot with watch a lot of sports over the weekend, and I love that. I love that because I'm in America. My Premier League action that I watch on Saturday mornings literally starts right after I'm done eating breakfast on a Saturday morning. I love that. It's just when it's perfect when it does that. There's a subreddit for that on Reddit, but I forget the name of it.
Satisfyingly lines up with your schedule.
It's so good. It's good stuff. More penalties coming in to the surprise of literally nobody. 15-second penalty for car 404 for taking out the 501 on lap 1, turn 1. That was the incident that you called, Josh. Racing incident between the 44 and the 1. Aggressive driving into turn 1, racing incident, but borderline, says the stewards. Warning for car 3, shunts the 722 just in time for the braking zone, shunting them into a group of cars on the apex. So a warning for car 3 for lap 1, turn 1 as well.
Yeah, it was a very, very messy start from what I saw. I mean, obviously, we have a few screens kind of watching in various different places, and we've had it before, Jesse, where we've called lap 1 and we've both turned around and said, "Oh, that looked entirely clean," and then the stewards have kind of tapped us on the shoulders a little bit later, and with a slight amount of frustration because it turns out it hasn't been clean at all, and where were we looking? So I know we caught a little bit this time around, but yeah, it was very hectic.
Josh, I think the funniest one was, I think it was a Snetterton race, one of the first Snetterton races we ever did. I was like, man, that was a completely clean first lap. And I had a steward text me, goes, "Are you on drugs?"
I mean,
I'm like, well, the first 15 cars, the cars I could see on camera, were clean. And to my credit, I was correct. The problem is that there were 40 cars in that race.
The problem was there's 40 cars in that race, and Jesse is getting on a bit, chat. So, we'll forgive him this one.
Well, the racing does continue here. Dorian Geisler is in between a high silver sandwich. I would very much like to get on with it. The 185 leading the high silver battle and leading the championship, but Grant Willamont, who's set on the pole, is right behind him now. And I wonder if Willamont's idea here is Geisler making a move on Rossi and then trying to capitalize on that, because you see some aggression out of Geisler trying to get it by Rossi, but you don't see any aggression by Willamont, though he might have to turn up the intensity a little bit because Minnow Crozen, who is another pro car, is behind him as well. So those are the 4 cars here. 2 cars in each category fighting for a position, but they're, well, separated by a car apiece in a different class. It's a sort of situation that you're only going to get in mixed endurance action, and it certainly is the case here. By the way, the lead for the overall in this race is down to 0.6 of a second.
I'm wondering if the 141 is kind of just easing off just to kind of preserve the car, or if the race pace of the 73 is just that fast. I mean, it does feel like a track where the McLaren should be fairly strong, so
Ooh,
Who
around the
knows?
outside. He can make this work if he can get completely side by side, and he is. Is he going to yield the position? He is going to. But what does Grant Willamont do? Trying to fill the slot on the inside, coming through the arena. He can't quite get there, but maybe a lunge down here he could, and he does. And he does lunge into the corner, side by side for the high silver lead, and it's going to be Grant Willamont back in the lead. Excellent driving, excellent stuff. Use the pro car as a pick, got in there, and got the spot back. That's incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's always great when you see something like that. Obviously, the pro car comes through and just leaves a slight opening, doesn't push, but kind of makes the 185 kind of just go offline and compromises the entry into the next corner and just allows the space for Willamot to just squeeze that car on through. And I believe Rossi might also have lost a position to Croydon as well. So that will be a car's buffer between Willamot and Rossi, and Willamot will be very, very happy with that.
Yeah, for as rough as the start was for the driver of the 100 Porsche, it has come back to them here. And that will certainly help their morale and efforts for the final hour and 30-some minutes. Still no rain on the forecast. It is completely cloudy here, overcast, as they say. No chance of sun for the next 30 minutes or so, and I don't think it's going to improve too much. I think this is what we got here today, folks. Very cloudy, but decent day nonetheless. And the drivers will rejoice. No curveballs here. Well, we have to find out because there's still an hour of weather that we're privy to yet. Quite humorously, by the way, we read off the incident earlier that the 722 of Hawa got punted. The steward shared with us that Hawa gained 5 spots because of that punt, but because you can't penalize somebody for being hit, they couldn't do anything about it.
That does make sense, and yeah, no, we see the timing sheet start lighting up with the red penalties now. We're not even half an hour in, so hopefully we'll start seeing things settle down. But do you say, Jesse, this is an RCI TV race, so anything can happen?
Well, speaking of, these are all lap 1 incidents I'm about to read off as they continue to sort through the lap 1, turn 1 melee. Actually, I just realized these are all turn 10 and turn 3. No further action between the 837. The 837 turns into the 107, not leaving racing room, but no further action. Warning for car 837, 5 seconds and a warning. Unsafe rejoin, forcing the 501 to take avoidable action that loses that car multiple positions. 5-second penalty for car 3 for taking out the 782. Penalty reduced from 15 seconds to 5 as the position was given back. 5-second penalty for car 837. 5 seconds and a warning. The 837 unsafe rejoin, forcing the 501. That's actually a. Is that a repeat? I think that might be a repeat, in fact. But either way, it's down here twice that the 837 forced them wide. And yes, indeed, they're updating it as we speak, as there's a clerical error there. But yeah, 5-second penalty for the 837 for forcing the 501 wide, causing them to lose positions. That is the one and only 5-second penalty for that car. Warning for car 722, driving the wrong way to turn around off track. 15-second penalty for car 107 for taking out the 722 on lap 4.
So it seems to be that, we have had a fairly scrappy race in the opening half an hour of it. Again, it is a very, very tight track, as has been said. So it does make overtaking very difficult. You kind of have to plan. I mean, we've seen a mix of some amazing and some quite disastrous attempts, really. I'm guessing we'll have plenty left to go. Looking at the leaders, you were talking about the gap, Jesse. 7/10, so the gap staying kind of consistent between half a second to a second now. So I wonder if Koroshavin's found a bit of pace in that car, or whether or not Dykes has fallen back a little.
Well, we are riding on board with Lewis Dykes in the newly promoted Renwelton Esports driver team. Got his restored DD2 from Fanatec. Excellent product. And it's serving him well as he has erased a 2-second gap to Korshaven for the lead of this race. Ivan giving me shtick in chat says Jesse's surprisingly clean lap Lee reading 100 seconds of lap 1 penalties 20 minutes into the race. All right, Ivan.
I think a man just got called out.
I mean, I can't even defend myself. He's right. Moving right along. By the way, Marko Dimitrov, he's followed Dykes up to this point, so you can say Dykes has brought friends up to the front of the field. Actually, no, Dykes has had an incident, hasn't there? Yes, they have. Dykes has fallen back. I didn't see that. I was looking away.
Yeah, no, same for just a moment. You know, look at the timesheet and 3.5 seconds back or thereabouts. So fairly significant, really. So I'm wondering what's happened. Have they just gone wide somewhere and just lost out the time, or because it seems to be that they will need to make up the time as well. And if you're Korshaven and you're looking at the delta, or you have your teammate looking at the delta, that's nice. That's nice information to be fed back.
Yeah, Korshaven. This is the thing about the Ballas Ukraine team. They've not always had the best car. Okay, they've not always had the perfect strategy. The Bentley has not always been the best pick, but it doesn't matter. They are so consistent and consistently good that they stay in contact with the leaders, even when they're not one of them. They don't make big mistakes. They don't really make any mistakes, and they're always there. And that is the most dangerous team that you could have. A team that is not going to make mistakes, that has relative pace, that executes on whatever strategy they have, even if it's not the quickest or the most risque. Doesn't matter. Stay in the fight, collect trophies, and that's what they've done. They've got 3 podiums this season. They've got the win. They had that excellent, I think it was second place a week ago as well. Fought through all that, and here we are again. Didn't qualify on pole, didn't have to. Took the lead, got ran down by Dykes. Dykes, we assume, made a mistake at some point, lost all that time, and effectively reset 20 minutes worth of progress. And that's the story of the 141. They're just relentless.
They're relentless, but they're also calm as well. We've brought them in for interview before a couple of weeks back now, Jesse, and one thing I noted was they are so calm and collected, even when things don't quite go their way. They have this ability to plan ahead, to learn from the experience, and to carry things into...
Here. Oh no! No!
That was on the 44 car, the 404 car, if I'm not mistaken. That is correct. Yeah, both cars with a 15-second time penalty, and it seems to be that the position wasn't given back. Lawrence will lose a spot, I believe. I believe that it's the spend check as well in the 107 Bentley, also with a 15-second time penalty. So, for both Renoir and Lawrence, not the sort of race that you want to be having.
Vonta Blue, who is Alpha, by the way, one of our stewards, says, I'm here on my vacation. It's not been a very restful vacation for you, Alpha, if I'm honest, as you've been put to work immediately. Looking at some of the other penalties that we didn't read off, 15 seconds for car number 8 for taking out the 199. That's pretty slam dunk, as Ryan Gill would say. Warning for car 8 for avoidable contact, and a 15-second penalty for car 199 for taking out the 404 with position not returned. Once again, as Ryan Gill would say, a slam dunk. We saw that, and I think there's only one way that could have won.
Now looking at going down into turn 1, the 70 and the 73, actually, it's not going to do the 73 any favors at all, trying to catch up to Korshaven, and whilst fighting with the Bentley, not quite able to make anything stick. But it seems that these cars should be working together at this point in time. They could see Korshaven up the road. They know they have the pace to catch up. Maybe make something work on strategy, but You know, if they keep fighting each other, that is just going to allow the 141 to kind of just run away.
No, 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 no. You don't understand, Josh. If Vanko Dimitrov gets around Dykes and then gets around Korshev and he's the leader, he doesn't want Dykes to be the leader. He wants to be the leader. If my driver good, their driver bad. That's how racing works.
I mean, to be fair, I think you do have you got a very good point there, but Jesse, you raise a strong argument.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you have two steaks and someone else is eating the other steak and you lock them outside, you have two steaks.
You know what? I'm going to argue with that logic. You're right.
It's all a joke. It's all a joke, but it's also true. That's how racing drivers think. It's like, I could let you catch back up, or
I can just take this position and thank you very much. But no, it does seem that, you know, when you are fighting, you know, you do lose out on that time, and that gap is staying around about 2.6 seconds, so it's not really shrinking at all. And you know, they need to start pulling something out very early on to start catching up. I mean, 2 seconds is enough to do something with strategy, but I mean, you do want that buffer. You're watching the 501 again. The 501's had not the nicest of races so far, not the best of luck. Trying to get around Rossi, going on the inside potentially, thinks a little bit better of it, going down into turn one. Not really a position to make anything happen, just a bit too far back. But the 185, you know, making the Aston very, very wide and not making it not easy to get by. And the 185 in turn wanted to chase down Willemot. There is a car between them, and around about 5 seconds between the first and second place the cars in silver. So a fair bit to make up there too.
just reading some messages from chat. Lewis Edwards confirms that Dykes, quote, understeered wide twice, but it's back on now and everything's all good. And the gap continued to widen there, but now it is starting to go back in the favor of the 73. I wonder if maybe Dimitrov's proximity had anything to do with that. Also, he was talking about earlier consistency and staying calm. Tom the Mailman Robert says, keeping calm and steady is only what the best drivers do, don't you know? It really, it's not that it's exclusive to the best drivers. It's just more likely that a veteran driver with really good pace will also eventually learn that you don't have to go kamikaze into every corner. You don't have to run your tires off your car. You can drive at your pace and make up time, win races, and etc. and so forth. And hello to everybody who has just joined us on a Friday evening, wherever you are in the world. We hope that you're well. We thank you for joining us here on RCI TV. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Joshua Devonshire and Mr. Stewie. And I call him Mr. Stewie, right? It's weird. Mr. Stew. I think that's what I'm going to go with from now on. How do you like that, Stew? You like that name? He loves it. Moving right along. Big thank you to all of our partners that makes this race and every race possible. Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. Get 25% off your driver coaching using our discount code RCI Coaching D61. And get you some driver coaching. It can make you a better driver, and it should make you a better driver. If anything, more consistent. Speaking to what Tom the Mailman Roberts was talking about. And being consistent is a acquired skill. And also, you can use our Fanatec affiliate link. Doesn't cost you anything, and it may help us out with things like server cost when you use our affiliate link to buy Fanatec products. We do appreciate that. You know who is enjoying their Fanatec products? The 73 driver Dykes. Absolutely loving it so far today. And of course, a big thank you to AK Informatica for hosting our servers and everybody else as well. Feel free to join our Discord, get involved with racing. In just about a week's time, GT4 signups on Thursday are going to go live. The event was revealed, or excuse me, the series was revealed a day ago, of what the new season is going to be. It's going to be completely different We're doing away with the two 30-minute race sprint format and going for a bit longer races. Going to be very interesting indeed. And by the way, while you're down there looking for discount codes and all that stuff, why not like, subscribe, hit that bell for more GT racing action? And if you're not interested in GT racing action, surely Josh and I are entertaining enough, I'd assume.
I mean, I'd hope so, but also at the same time, link to the server, come join. Obviously we have different splits and different races, no matter what your ability. If you're watching the racing and you're thinking, well, I kind of want in on this, and I believe that's the 501 Ferrari, and I believe the class leading silver. No, wait, no, that was Rossi. That was Rossi, the 185. I forgot Willamot had gotten by, and that was a tap going into
Oh,
and
Rossi gets turned.
that's not great. I mean, turns in. I mean, given the Ferrari's dues, it did look like it was as far tucked in into the inside as it really could be without going onto the curb, and maybe, yeah, just maybe a little bit of a misjudgment there in how much space was available to them. But back to my point, if you guys are watching this and thinking, hey, how do I get involved? Discord's down below, and we have different splits. So these guys are obviously the quick guys that we have, but we do have different servers as well. So no matter what your ability, whether you're just starting out or whether you are wanting to, give these guys a run for their money, the option's there.
Never forget, we do more than ACC now. We got race room championships as well, and I so desperately want to get those broadcast. It was a passion project of Jake the Bosmeister Boswell, and I came in late to that over a year ago, but I fell in love with broadcasting race room content at that point as well. So so desperately want to get those race room races broadcasted, as they're very, very competitive and very fun to not only be a part of, because I've always liked race room, but also to broadcast. I've noticed something with RCI. We bring the chaos no matter where we go. It doesn't matter what sim, what car, what track. The chaos follows us. It's almost like we were born into the chaos and not molded by it, raised by the chaos. Moving right along. I'm getting off topic here. I do apologize. Dominic Corshaven took the lead very early on in this race, lap 2. Actually, lap 1, in fact. Turn 1, lap 1. And hasn't looked back for very long. Been ran down by Dykes once. Dykes had a couple of pretty terrible turns, as we're being told, and dropped to nearly 3 seconds behind at one point. But once again, broken record. That gap is trending in the right direction. Now 2 seconds. So he had initially a 2-second gap, Josh, that he had to run down. Now he's got to do it all over again. Does that weigh on your psyche at all, knowing that you've did it once, you got to do it again? Or do you have confidence, since you already did it once, that you can do it again?
Well, given that the track conditions are always kind of changing in the sense of, and I don't just mean the track is in. I mean the track's optimum. That's not gonna change as we see Crows and take a move, I believe, on the outside going down into the final sector, and just not able. Again, just goes a bit too wide, compromises the line, and isn't able to make anything through. But Geisler does have that 5-second penalty, so Croydon technically doesn't need to make the move, but will be, as you say, racing drivers be racing drivers. But no, does it weigh on the psyche? I think it will, in a sense, because say your car's changing from underneath you. Your tires are going, your fuel's running down. The fatigues are starting to set in at this point for at least the starting drive, and 40 minutes into the race. And you see the timer tick down, and you see that 2-second gap again. You might think, well, I've done it once before, but can't have been easy. And well, it's not easy doing it once. It's not going to be easy doing it again.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence myself. I mean, there's certainly been times where if I caught somebody and then I made a mistake, and I start gaining time, I feel good. But then there's the initial frustration of, oh my God, I got to do everything I did all over again. And again, it goes back to the difference between a good and a great racing driver. You have to remain mentally strong, focused and locked in. You have to get back on the proverbial horse and get back up there. And it's a lot easier said than done. I don't remember who said this originally, but it was a famous sports broadcaster here in the states. I'm sure they weren't the first person to say this, but they mentioned that the the first hurdle in sports is always the mental barrier. You and I know John Madden once said 90% of the games have mental, but it doesn't sound like he can do math, so that's not where I'm going with that. But it's very true though. The first step in a sports game or a match or a race or whatever it is the mental aspect. You got to get your head in the right space, and certainly we've all been there where our head's not been in it, and the race didn't sort out. So the same way, you have to reset your mind mid race. Something bad happens, you have to do what Grant Willamont did. Reset your brain. Like, okay, I'm dead last in my class. This is fine. Insert dog in burning house meme, and get back on it. And Grant was able to do that. I think Dykes can do that too, though the gap is fluctuating as we see Philip Witchick trying to get by Morgan McCall here.
Not quite able to do it. So again, McCall, we've seen McCall defend. We have seen the fact that they will not give an inch of space on the inside. Like, not the McCall. The defense from all of the McCall drivers, we've seen has been frankly immaculate. Which trying to find a way through, trying to go offline, trying to find a way down the inside, on the outside, not able to find any gap into the hairpin. Nice and cambered. You can carry a lot of speed through here. With speed comes aerodynamic unsettling, and Bentley seems to be that it has. It's not impervious to it, but it's definitely strong when it comes to following other cars, and that will be giving Witchick the slight advantage here. But at the same time, McCall making that AMG as wide as the track will allow. Looking back on the rear wing now, he's coming down into the chicane. There's going to be an opportunity potentially if Witchick can pull alongside. Look, the gap seems to be it's staying static actually. So going down into the braking zone, who will outbrake first? You see the Bentley's so good on the brakes. You see it just catch up. Splash of sparks as the car bottoms out over the curb, and that will allow Witchick a little gap on the inside. Is it going to be enough to go through? McCall again taking the exit, maximizing the acceleration down the straight, holding onto the position, and that's got to be frustrating if you're the one Bentley behind.
Well, it's good fair racing, and some people will boo the 44 for having a penalty and defending, but hey man, it's a top 5, it's their right. Who's to say that if the 44 defends the one here to the pit stop and gets a 15-second penalty, and which will be served on the pit stop, but ends up being somewhat closer. If the 44 lets the one by and then has the penalty and loses out by 1 second or whatnot, you would argue, well, if he would have just defended, he would have been in front of the one. So you can't argue what could be. You have to argue how it is in the present, and the present is they're fighting over a top 5 spot. 15-second penalty outstanding, doesn't matter. They're fighting for a top 5 spot. They're allowed to battle it out. They're being very respectful about it. I think Witchick is doing his utmost to try and not get in the way of the 44 or put himself in a compromised position, but he's also heavily contesting it. I think he's made that point clear, that I'm going to try and pass you, and he's going to go way deep up the inside, and he absolutely licks the stem. Is he related to Tom the Mailman Roberts? Look at this.
And that was just licking the stamp and sending it coming down right on the brakes.
Morgan said nope.
Yeah, McCall was about to turn in, take the line, looks in the mirror and just has second thoughts. I mean, to be fair, given how strong McCall's defense is, that might legitimately be one of the only ways to get by, is to believe, I'd like to believe at least, make a slight mistake and overstep the braking a little bit.
Tom Roberts and his brother Philip Witczek, apparently. That was a big old send, and all credit to Morgan there. Just noticing, oh wow, he actually sent that. I'm not going to get involved anymore. There's not a whole lot you can do. Like, you can try to cover that and cause an incident, or you can do the smart thing, not damage your car, and pull out of it. And it is frustrating if you are Morgan McCall, because that was a complete send. But unfortunately, it was done in a clean manner. I don't know if the stewards might warn for coming back from a decent gap. They do that, but I don't know. I feel like Philip Witczek was well within his right to kind of send it, as long as he didn't oversend it.
Yeah, I mean, contact was avoided, and I mean, one of those I think dive bombing in racing is one of those grey areas. It's allowed by the rules, but it's kind of not the kindest thing to do to your opponents.
Yeah, you can. The rules are simple. You can send it into a corner, but if the stewards deem that you've done it from too many car lengths back, they can deem it a dangerous move and give you a warning, even if there's no contact, just as a sign of, hey, that was a little sketchy. Please don't do that again. Is what that warning is really for. I don't think they'll give him that, honestly, though. I feel like that was a calculated move by the one, and Morgan McCall, excellent wherewithal to see that car at the last second and go, nah, I'm not gonna continue to turn in there. Tom Roberts in chat loves it. I knew he would. I knew he would love that. Tom Roberts loves a clean send, and a clean send it was. Jordan Daly in chat, loving the livery on the 141 Bentley. You would, Daly. You would.
I mean, it's purple. It's Bentley. It passes my test. Although my test is very simple. Is it purple and a Bentley? If the answer is yes, then great. Lawrence having a bit of a struggle of a race, and it seems like, yeah, no, Lawrence is ahead of Rossi. Rossi was running P2 in silver, so whilst we've been talking, Jesse, I think we've been a little distracted. Rossi has dropped down the order for whatever reason. I'm not entirely certain what has happened, but that will promote currently P12 Moss in the 3 Aston Martin. That will promote them into second place in the silver class.
Ivan says the Bentley looks scary hunting down the AMG. I mean, it does. I mean, the Bentley looks menacing regardless, and I can't imagine that 44 cared too much about how big the Bentley was, but it does look menacing. By the way, Bart Macha has told me that it's pronounced Vitchuk. Vitchuk. His name is he's Philip Vitchuk. So I'll have to get used to that, Bart Macha, but I do appreciate the correction there. As Martin Lawrence, who by all accounts has had a miserable day after having a decent, I think he double top 5'd yesterday, Josh, I'm pretty sure. Marked in the top 5 for both races. So he's having a great day yesterday. Not so much here. Last in his class, 15-second penalty on top of that to boot. It has been fairly miserable, you could argue. And your point, what's happened to the 185? That is not good for the championship leader. They have a lead in the championship, but it's not nearly big enough for them to, as we would say here. Do you say lay an egg in Britain, by the way? I don't know. Because when we refer to something being terrible or being a bad outing, we say, oh, well, he laid an egg.
Can't say that's a saying I've ever heard. To be completely honest,
I didn't want to say that without context, because if I just said that to an international audience, they're like, what is he on about? Laying an egg is an American idiom, apparently, when somebody is fumbling a bit, or faltering. So, for instance, if you go out and you get blown out by 5 goals in football, okay, you would say the losing team laid an egg. And by laying an egg, they scored 0. So, for all intents and purposes, Martin Lawrence is laying an egg of a race. This concludes American Idioms with Jesse Lee.
Language with Jesse. You can't say we don't bring you guys educational content here at RCI. So we have the 782 Bentley chasing down the 837 Bentley of Geisler. Geisler does have the penalty as well, trying to make a move on the outside, not able to make anything move of it. Going down into the outside again, maybe just slightly avoiding contact. Very, very tight on the brakes. It's quite a difficult one to anticipate, given in all fairness, rather than trying to find a way through. I mean, I'm not sure if it's all the other drivers having a terrible race so far. Well, not all the other drivers. I mean, Corey Shavens had a pretty great one so far, but Croydon we saw spun round on lap one, at least two different turns. Currently running top 10. So, you know, we were talking about making spaces up and making up for lost time. The 782 has definitely done that throughout the course of the first hour of this race.
Being made fun of as Minnow Crozen is changing the oil in Geisler's Bentley. Of course, when you drive a Bentley yourself, you know where the oil pan is, and he got really close to it there as they go side by side here into the chicane.
Ooh.
That's not entirely what you want to do, but they somehow make it work. A little bit of cooperation goes a long way, boys. And it does in that corner. That could have been ugly, but it wasn't. Good racing.
I think Croydon might have something to say about that because he was more than halfway alongside, and it did look like, I mean, I'm not Steward, but it did look like Geisler did just kind of shut the door a little bit there. It's a very tight part of the track. It's very, you want, and it's a big car. You want to try to squeeze it through, but, cutting off another car might lead to some reservations, at least with the driver, with the other driver and team involved. Looking at the 722 Aston Martin chasing down there, Renoir having had, I think it's fair to say, to use your own term, Jesse, has laid an egg of a race.
Here we go.
It's applied knowledge. It's applied knowledge.
Josh, someone out there looked up what that meant because they either didn't trust me or were very confused what I was talking about. Yeah, lay an egg, goose egg, all these things mean zero. And I don't know why in America we also say it whenever a team can score points, but if they played really badly, they laid an egg. So even though they didn't score 0 points, it's language is fun, isn't it? Pre-race today, I was having a dumplings conversation with the stewards on the difference between an American and a European dumpling as well. Very different, very different.
And I mean, language and dialect is very, very, it's not universal. It's not universally understood. But what is universally understood is the amount of pressure Harbour is currently putting Renoir under. This is a silver class car pressuring a pro. I'm wondering if that Porsche is carrying some damage. I wonder if the Porsche is carrying some damage from earlier. We know they've had, as we say, laid an egg of a race. But I'm wondering if, there was something that kind of happened earlier, maybe like some front aero damage, that is coming back to haunt them as the tires start dropping off. That car has been out there for an hour now. It has been running. You see the 722 trying to make a move up the inside. Has to kind of bail out.
Oh, here we go.
Taking the pits. I believe this is the first pit stop we are seeing of the day. So trying to potentially go for an overcut.
I don't hate it. I don't hate the idea. I don't hate the strategy here. You've had a pretty rough race. You've been roughed up by several other cars out there. You clearly have damage of some sort. Come in early. You can make it to the end. 67-minute stint limit, by the way, for the drivers, and you have to change drivers to satisfy the minimum pit requirements. Certainly you will be taking tires in a 2-hour race. Certainly you will be adding some fuel in a race of this length. A lot of these cars will be nearly bone dry in the fuel tank when they get there. Some of the other cars won't be, and that is a slight advantage, having to take less fuel. But that's all part of it. It's all part of the strategy. But Renoir, the first to come in, will get out of the 199 and probably fix some of the dents and dings on that Porsche.
And hopefully we can see a bit of a resurgence in pace. We did see that. See, that is the pole sitting car. It's such a far cry seeing them drop down the order of sat in pits as they are. We have to remember that car started this race in first. That car led the way. So, new driver in the car. We've got GoPro back in the car. So that was, GoPro was the driver who set the pole setting time. So, starting from the back, bit of clear air. What can they do with the car that is substantially heavier than when they started? And that in the background is the 501 Ferrari entering the pits as well. So it seems to be that the 199 Porsche has just set that pit window open.
Yes, indeed. Pit stops are occurring here. The T-Ballis Esports account joining us. Hello, and you joined us at a great time. Your team is leading. How great is that? And of course, we do have some more penalties coming through. No further action for minor contact between the 185 and the 501. Racing incident between the 185 and the 501. The 185 cuts the 501's hood after not leaving enough space, taking themselves out. So we're going to score that under just desserts. So that's what happened to the 185, by the way. They had contact with the 501 and spun themselves, is what happened there. And we were talking about the number one overtaking the 44. What would the stewards think of that? I reckon they'd be okay. Turns out I'm incorrect, and that's why I don't get paid as much as they do. 5-second penalty for car number one for a forceful overtake. Additional notes, they reckon it would have been a huge crash had the 404 not taken evasive action. So due to the forceful overtake nature, 5-second penalty for the one car. Thoughts on that, Josh?
I mean, it, it's definitely it's definitely a, a decision, but at the same time, the stewards. We've said it before. They have everything from every different angle. Have access to footage that we just don't have here in the box. And
Ooh, crossing the pit lane. Is that allowed, by the way? Sorry to interrupt you.
I don't
Okay.
think we have anything against it in the RCI ruling, but I mean, again, as we're talking about steward decisions, I think that would be one for them to decide.
Well, neither does the FIA when Lewis Hamilton does it.
Oh yeah, it's like that pit wall got a bit close, man.
When Kimi Räikkönen and Seb Vettel do it, and Leclerc, it's a problem. But obviously, whenever Golden Boy does it, it's perfectly fine. Moving straight on from Formula One, Mikowski still hounding Dimitrov here. Actually, for the first time, hounding Dimitrov, and was noticing that Dykes isn't really gaining all that time back on course shaving, but Dimitrov has fallen off. And here is the result of that. Dimitrov falls off of Dykes, and now into the clutches of Mikowski for fourth place. And by the way, is that a drive-through penalty for the one? Is that track limits? That has to be.
It could be. I mean, turns 2 and 3, it is very easy to take a little too much. We're
going to watch a long replay here to see if maybe
Schumacher S is another place where you can go a bit wide. Yes.
Well, he's definitely got a drive-through, and it's definitely not showing up on our penalty sheet, which leads us to believe it's an ACC-assigned penalty. So a 5-second penalty turns into a drive-through by virtue of we're gonna have to assume track limits. So they've likely overrun track limits 4 times, gotten themselves a drive-through penalty. That's not a RCI penalty, that's an ACC penalty, and well, that makes that 5-second penalty null and void then at that point.
It would appear so. I mean, the drive-through is, around Nurburgring, around any track, it's substantial. At least we're not at Spa. It's, you got to see the silver linings and everything. Whereas at Spa, you basically need a passport to get through the pit lane at that point. You go through like 3 different time zones on the way out, so at least it's not that bad, but that will send the one Bentley down the order, and still with a stop to go as well as soon as the drive-through is served. So again, not ideal. As we see the 722 after the stop, chasing down the number 3 Aston. So it's 2 silver Astons fighting for position, and not just any position. It is the top. It is the bottom step on the podium. A podium is a podium. We've seen Serafini. Do wonders in that car in the past as well. Very, very quick driver, very consistent. And I think if you're Donald at this point in time, you got to be on your toes.
Well, final update on Philip Vitchuk's penalty, the 5-second penalty that they got. Further confirmation that the stewards deemed that because they went from a following position behind the car to immediate sharp left in the braking zone and straight lining through the corner, essentially. Um, they felt that that was the aggressiveness that warranted that penalty. And I'm also being told in chat that maybe we do have a rule for crossing white lines in the pit lane. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're interested in doing that. But Alan Serafini Danesi has gotten into the 722 and, well, unfortunately, has gotten into Donald in the 3 as well.
That's not what you want to see, and that has just allowed, I think it's one of the Porsches to slip by. I think it's one of the Pro Class Porsches, so not in the same race.
Oh,
So a little bit side by side between when that's GoPro and I believe, which Bentley was that? That would have been the 107 of Slizik. So again, that is a fight for position within the same class, and little bit elbows out.
Ivan brings up a good point. Yuki Tsunoda got a penalty for just touching the line, and in F1, we're talking about F1, of course, not RCI racing at this point, but it was complete BS that Lewis Hamilton got to completely jump pit out or pit in rather in the rain under safety car at Hungaroring many years ago. And the FIA said that was fine. And 2 weeks later, Daniel Ricciardo gets a penalty. It wasn't Hungaroring, it was Hockenheim, excuse me, where that happened. And then Yuki Tsunoda and the likes of them, they just touch the line and they get a penalty. It's very interesting. I'll give our stewards this. At least they're consistent.
Yeah, they're consistent and can give reasons for the rulings as well. And sometimes I think as a driver, you have a penalty made against you, or a decision made against you. And I think a lot of the time in the moment there can be frustration and anger, but I think sometimes, once you have a little bit of time, you kind of cool off, and you're able to kind of look back or be told, hey, this is why this happened. It kind of makes it a little bit easier to swallow. Not always, but sometimes. And speaking of frustration, we've got that's Willamot flashing.
Oh, you gotta watch out, Grant. You gotta watch out. You can't be doing that, son. You can't be doing that.
Flashing the 501 late on the brakes, almost going into the back of Willamot and Geisler still to pit, by the way. The only 2 cars in the field yet, too. And trying to find a way against Kissing and sending it down the inside. I mean, you're on about moves for Tom. I mean, that. The mailman has called. Also seems to be, Jesse, that that 100 Porsche, despite having been out for an hour and 5 minutes now, is still lapping with some kind of pace. I mean, it's pulling away from the 501 Ferrari currently. So maybe at this point in time, Willamot may be deciding to kind of keep this out for as long as they can, driver stint permitting. Back on the 782, the Bentley looking down onto the McCalls. The McCalls finally, the McCalls pulled themselves back into 5th place. And once again on the attack. And, we've seen, as I said earlier in the stream, we've seen plenty of defense from the 44 Mercedes, but not so much on the attack. We've not really seen them in the position to be able to. And it's almost like the year where we're kind of graced with the presence of that kind of situation, so to speak. Making a bit of a lunge down into the hairpin, not able to make the gap, not able to close down on the gap, sorry. We're down into the Schumacher S's, and
so this is interesting. We were talking about pit entry rules in RCI because it doesn't often come up. Well, apparently, the 73 team was also talking about that prior to us. They wanted to know how much they could cut the pit entry. So that made Lewis Edwards, who's in our chat, look up the RCI rule book, who has subsequently been offered a job at RCI for knowing the rules as a steward. That'd be I'd love to see. No pressure, Lewis, but I'd love to see you in the steward's box. That's pretty good stuff.
Knowing our own rule book better than ourselves, and I mean that's why we're in the box and we're not in the stewarding hall.
Yeah, I'm not particularly brilliant at comms or stewarding, but I get I get I get led around no matter what I do. So that's good for me because I don't get lost and I use the buddy system. But also, it's good for everybody else because me alone in here would be pretty terrible in either box. But we always say the stewards they all have the head stewards all have a different personality. Everybody has something they're particularly looking for. Some drivers don't like, or some head stewards don't like aggressive overtakes, like with door banging. Other head stewards will kind of let that go, and even more to the point, some of them will heavily enforce certain rules, such as pit line blending and stuff. We've had that over the past year or so as well, and it's not necessarily like trying to hit a moving target because they're told, because it is basically the same stewarding team for each championship or for each race in a single championship as they continue to race here. Grant Willamot, by the way, racing by themselves, so they're going to get a 130-second penalty at the end of this race, but thanks to Chris Stevenson for letting us know. Unfortunately, Grant's teammate couldn't make it. Brownie face. That's unfortunate for Grant, but even if they win, it'll be a moral victory for Willamont, even though it'll be a 130-second penalty, I think, which is the ACC assigned penalty for not doing the mandatory stop requirement. I don't think it straight up disqualifies you. I think it gives you a very hefty time penalty.
Yeah, looking at the chat, Tom Roberts does actually say it won't be a DQ though. It's a 130-second penalty applied post race, I believe. I always thought it was a DQ, so I'm not entirely certain on that one, but I trust Tom Roberts' decision. And that was I look back at the screen from looking at the YouTube chat, and that was a squeeze. I think that was Willamot just pushing the Ferrari onto the outside of turn 1, I believe. So that was might be another one for the stewards, and Willamot's position potentially with not having your teammate going from bad to worse. Also in the YouTube chat, the Bobson has said same with Geisler, he actually pitted. So I'm wondering if Geisler also is running this race solo.
Yeah, so it's possible that they are having to run this race solo. That again, that will be a 130-second penalty. Some of the penalties that ACC assigns, you don't really understand them until you get them. I think violating the driver stint limit disqualifies you post-race, but failing to do the mandatory stop is a 130-second time penalty. I'm sure the stewards will correct me. They know more than I do. So if I'm wrong, they will certainly correct me. Chris Stevenson confirming that it's that not fulfilling the pit requirement is 130, and I'm pretty sure the DQ is if you go over your stint limit, which is 67 minutes. Willamot came in on time and will not violate 67 minutes. That's 67 minutes in one stint. By the way, we're looking at some of the replays as I'm rambling on. I do apologize. Reading up for some stuff in chat as well. Ivan says we keep Jesse here for the maths. No, they don't. Ryan Gill has made that very clear. He tells me every day, stop doing maths. I'm like, no, I haven't. Brian Scheckerman in chat lamenting how terrible the race has went for them. Ryan, we can only commiserate and agree. It was a very frustrating 1 hour for you.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of frustrating, when you've got just event after event and just kind of going against you, especially when you start from such a strong position as well. And it's not the greatest, not the greatest of feelings getting out of the car, but it's not over. I mean, where are we? The 199 GoPro driving, making their way back through the field somehow. And this is about Matcha that's off in the 404 AMG, just getting it a little bit
Ah, it's too
sideways
much on
at
the
the chicane
inside.
and just overcorrected the car. A bit of a tank slapper and into the grass. Did they stay out of the barrier? I believe they did. So able to rotate the car under throttle and carry on their way, but and 4-4 running down in P17, so not where they would
Josh,
like to be. Yes, Jesse?
I do apologize. I had to walk away for a moment and I come back and now the 73 is no longer in the running order. Did you cover that?
73. I did. I'm going to be completely honest. Looking at the stream, I can't say I noticed.
Well, the 73, of course, was running second, right? Yeah, the 73 was running second and is now no longer in the race. I wonder if something happened on the pit stop. I'm not entirely sure. Now, the 70 is in second place, and that will promote the 627 with Garbus into third now, with Sets in second, and Junior McCall now in the 44, rubbing fenders with Willamont here. Actually, that's not Willamont, that's Mulholland. He's rubbing fenders with for fourth place. What happened to the 73?
And it could be anything. I mean, they were running a fairly decent race, so I'm actually we passed a bit of a note here. 73 can't finish from Lars Fishbaum. 73 can't finish the race because drivers MFD bugged and can't change anything. So yeah, they stopped the car, so they have retired the car sadly. So we will not see that car, the 73, finish this race. So I mean, that's going to allow the 141 to kind of run away with more points for this championship, and that's kind of the damage control that 73 did not need.
I I I think I've heard of that happening a couple of times. We're going to replay Holland and Junior McCall. Very close racing here. A lot of door contact between them, but didn't seem to affect them too much. Running wide there was Mulholland trying to move the 44 off the line, and all intents and purposes, it worked, but it is still race on for the fourth place position. And by the way, this is why Morgan McCall raced so hard to stay in their position, as they're going to nearly lose it and go off the track, as they definitely hit a curb or something. Did they clip the inside curb exiting the chicane, I think, is what happened here. Nope, they just lost it, carrying a little bit too much speed, but excellent driving by Junior there to not wreck that car. And they are still in it. Well, you know what they say, Junior, if you caught him once, you can do it again. We have faith in you here. As Bart Macha in the 404 back in the pit lane.
I'm wondering if they've just pulled that car in because they were running fairly far back. So I'm wondering if frustration has got the best. I'd like to think not. I'd like to think that they could carry on, but let's just have to keep an eye as to see how long they are in the pits for. I mean, a driver that stood up to me today, Jesse, is the McCalls. We saw them with penalties at the start, earlier on in the race, before the pit stops, and when all said and done, still coming out in P5 and still fighting for positions. So you got to give them credit. That kind of consistency is the sort of thing that will kind of get them into the spots that they need to be in.
I've noticed this, and I'm sorry to be nationalist like this, but I think it's a South African thing. They just don't give up, they don't get defeated, and they get on with it. And it's almost like the British, the spirit of the Blitz, almost in a weird way, where they're sort of relentless in that way, that they're not going to give up. Oh, I got a penalty, that's fine. I'll race whoever's next to me. You gotta admire that, and I always appreciate tough but fair racing. And the McCalls have made a name for themselves. They're not afraid to get their elbows out. They're not afraid to have fender contact. They're not afraid to race you close, but that's all part of it. As long as it's all fair, then they are certainly well within their right to well, get their elbows out, as I like to say. Radishak trying to pass Willamette. It's not a place for position in class, but for overall. Willamette, who will get that 130-second penalty at the end of the race, uh, will be of little consequence to them. The moral victory for the 100 today. By the way, Schickerman confirming in chat, 130 seconds for not completing the pit requirements, stint timer violation is a drive-through, and drive time violation is a disqualification. So that makes sense. Further information from Lewis Edwards. Lewis's MFD was glitched, so he couldn't select Lars as driver. They stopped in the pit lane and were remapping buttons to try and see if they could fix it that way. Didn't work. Tried commands, nothing worked. They tried to disconnect and reconnect, didn't work. They had to retire the car. Yeah, oh, you hate that. Look, if you're going to make a mistake and lose a race, that's fine. But if it's something completely out of your control, Josh, it's heart aching.
It is. I've had that happen to me a couple of times in this game. Actually, one during one of the charity races, in fact. And it's one of those feelings of you did all you could, especially when you are running in a good position. It really does feel like you've been robbed. There's no other way of describing it. You feel your heart sink, and people might say, "Well, it's just a game," but the racing and the emotions, it's all very, very real.
So the 404 will be retiring, citing a unruly car. Nathan McConnell in chat confirming as much. The 404 retiring, car undrivable. Hashtag blame Jesus and his G25. Yeah. Bart Macha just said the car as well. Privately just told us that the car is just too much to handle. It's not a fun drive or even a manageable drive. So the 404 is going to have to retire, as well as, well, strangely enough, the attrition rate here after the halfway point picking up.
40 minutes left to go, and you have the 722 again, still trying to find a way around. So Delphini, and I was about to say we saw them make contact earlier, but making contact again, that was Denisi sending Donald around on the exit of turn one. Let's take a look at the replay. What happens? Trying to go for the inside, not able to get closer. It looks like
he was already losing it.
Wide. Yeah, went a bit wide on the exit, but potentially lit up the rear tires and left Denisi potentially nowhere to go. I mean, the stewards will be giving that a look. Jesse, you think that number 3 was already losing it? That might be the case. It's very slippery on the exit of that corner, so it's something to watch out for, especially in these conditions. Quite a warm track, but yet quite cloudy as well. So, but is optimum. So it is the best of a bad situation.
They'll look at that, and what they're going to need to determine is, was Donald going to go around by himself? Would he have saved it? Was there anything the car behind could have done to avoid them? All these things factor into the decision. They'll look at inputs. Obviously, we don't have that ability. We get to see it live, and if we're lucky on a replay, they have all the different camera angles from all the cars. So they'll be able to figure out exactly what the drivers were doing, and it's a whole thing. You got to piece it together. You're almost a crime scene investigator at that point, where they will look at all the data they have and determine, was that avoidable contact, number one? Was the end result going to happen regardless of the contact, et cetera, and so forth? You get where I'm going with that. So TLDR, glad I'm not a steward, because that is a lot of work you have to do, and they do it in minutes too. They do it in minutes, and they're able to get a result. So speaking of results, a couple more things that have came through. A warning for car 199 for dive bombing the 107. Takes position with contact. Racing incident between the 782 and the 44, which we expected. 5-second penalty for car 100 for dive bombing the 501 and making contact. Those are the only penalties that have come through in the past, I'd say about 20 minutes, but certainly they will be looking at what just happened there, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations. It's kind of difficult to call, and as you say, they have all of the information that we don't have access to. They have all the information they need to make to make a decision, and you know they're so efficient with how they come out with these things, and that's Mulholland going a little bit wide on the exit, two wheels onto the grass. It's allowing McCall to catch up, going around the outside of I believe this is turn 10. A little bit of a tap. This is turning in. It's very again, these situations it's difficult to call, but or you could say it's difficult to McCall. But
Boo!
that has cost McCall some time, and that has actually put the 100 of Willamette in contention to take a little bit of a look on the inside of the chicane, but not able to capitalize. And that means that the 44 is going to have to hustle the car a little bit to catch back up to Mulholland. Meanwhile, that has left Willamette open to the number 1 Bentley, who currently looks like to have the inside line going down into turn 1, having the dominant line, the shortest line through the corner. Willamette holding them off onto the exit, going side by side. Willamette going slightly wide onto the grass, but will have the switchback going down into turn 2. The number 1 Bentley just squeezing the way through, but Willamette will have the inside line going down into turn 3. Able to squeeze by and pushes the 1 Bentley wide. Bentley leaving the room that it needs. Obviously, gargantuan car against essentially a housefly. And Willamette will hold on to that position, both with a 5-second time penalty. But if you want respectful racing, I mean, you've got it right there, Jesse.
I don't think there was a lot of respect given there. Willamette cut Radajak off every chance he got and dared him to spin him, and then door checked him. But I love it. Look, I think they're going to let that go, because the net result of that was nothing. Nothing happened. They door banged a couple of times through turns 1, 2, and 3, the Mercedes-Benz Arena section, but nothing happened. They reset to where they were. It's okay to allow the teams to race, and we typically do here, which is why I love our stewarding, is we're willing to let stuff go if nothing of value was lost. And Willamette, the bravest man on the track right there. Whenever you have a Chihuahua that starts a fight with like a pit bull, and you wonder, do you know you're 1/8 the pit bull size? That is exactly what Willamette did in that Porsche, daring him to run wide, daring him to run into him, saying, I'm going to give you just enough room, and if you mess it up, you're going to be into me. And vice versa. Grant said, I'm going to put my car as close to the apex as possible, and I'm going to make you run around me. And it is, I wouldn't say respectful, but I would say excellent racing. I love it. Good job to both those drivers.
I think Ayrton Senna had a very similar kind of mindset at times as well, from what's been said from drivers in the era. That he'd put the car in such a position that you have two choices. You can let him by, or you can crash. And the choice is yours. So, maybe not always the smartest of moves, and definitely didn't always work out. I mean, Japan with Prost comes to mind. I mean, if there's if you no longer go for a gap, everyone knows the quote. But I think sometimes the stewards do look upon that a little bit differently.
Well, John C. Reilly in the Tom Cruise hit movie Days of Thunder said there's two kinds of drivers. There's a calculating driver and a kamikaze driver. And I know it's a movie, folks, but it's based on a real thing. And it's true. There's two kinds of drivers. There is a calm, cool, calculated driver, and then there's a driver that will go full, as we say in modern times, go full sin. And I kind of value a world where we have both. It makes it very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you have these polarizing characters. I mean, I don't want to go back to Formula One, but to make another Formula One reference, look at Max Verstappen when he first came into the sport. Very quickly gained a reputation for being a little bit aggressive, I think is a polite way of putting it. I mean, personally, I think these days he's matured really, really well. I mean, in real life, you've got real world consequences, and this, you could argue, it being a game, it allows the drivers to maybe go for moves that otherwise would be more frowned upon. You don't have the associated risk of costs or injury or anything like that. So, just pride in front of how many people are watching, including your peers, and that is McCall sending it up the inside of turn one. We'll have the outside of turn two, but we have seen moves like this stick before. Not quite able to make anything of the
Look at
gap.
Grant.
Yeah,
Oh, he's going for it. Oh, that's
going for it.
dangerous. He's not going to make it.
But having the inside, I think he's made it, Jesse.
Oh my God!
That also nearly costs McCall to concede against the number one Bentley.
Well, if the stewards gave the one a penalty for a move, are they gonna do that to Grant Willamont, or are they gonna say, well, he was on the inside, he did tell them he was gonna do that? Are they gonna see that as a dive bomb? I don't know. I'm glad I'm in this booth. Oh my goodness, it's such good fun to watch. As a driver, though, you're probably fuming about that. Be like, what are you on? Where you're just sending it like that. Missed the corner, ended up being able to defend anyway because of the positioning. Grant Willamont out here in the little Porsche Fly against these bigger cars, muscling them out of the way. As Ivan says, little Porsche, big cojones. By the way, Tom the Mailman Roberts is out here. We're quoting F1 drivers and famous movie lines. Tom Roberts is being a bit of a nerd. He's quoting Captain Picard. It's possible to do everything right without mistakes and still lose. But it's true. It is very true that you can have a perfect day and lose in anything, in any sport. It's just, it is a statement of fact. Crope's asking, what are the lap times of P16? Just want to know, as he's trailing behind in the slowest car. We'll have to take a look at that. Sure, our broadcaster can tell us about what kind of lap times that the 95 is running.
95, I have my timesheet open here. That last lap was a 156.2. In fact, according to my timesheet, last lap, 15th, 16th place, the number 3 of Steve McDonald and the 95 of Sam Smeets, both did in, what was it, 156.256. So, I'm not sure if that's a glitch in my timing sheet or whether that's the identical time. And
Grant Willamont is running roughshod through the middle of the top 10. Another ballsy, I'm going to say it, ballsy turn one pass in a Porsche. Incredible stuff. Up to 4th place. And Grant has made 0 friends on his march to the front.
Oh, and I mean, I always did think this might be a Porsche track, and Willamont definitely I don't want to say proving me right. I mean, obviously not they're not fighting for the overall lead or anything. They are far ahead in their class. I mean, only 5 drivers in silver, but what is that? That's another 5 cars separating himself from Denisi, who is second place in silver. But speaking of Denisi, under pressure from GoPro, obviously the pole sitting driver and car getting by, a little bit of a flash, so a little bit frustrated. Maybe felt like they were being held up. But if it's a fight for position, then GoPro. I mean, you gotta fight to find your way around.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, it happens to the real drivers as well in the GT Challenge. I watched the GT Challenge Europe and America series. It's the same thing in these races that are an hour or whatever. You do get into lap traffic, or you do get behind cars in different classes. They don't lay over for you. They're not required to lay over for you, and you still got to get through them. And as a driver, yeah, that's frustrating, because even if you get by them, you're not getting more points by doing that, because you're racing for your own points championship. And yeah, that's frustrating, but it is part of racing. Part of racing, of course, is, well, the racing aspect. And unfortunately, some of the time not even endurance racing, you are having to deal with cars that are not in your class. You're just used to, with most endurance racing, that they're slower than you and they're equal machinery, just different class of driver in the GT Challenge series, which in my opinion is what makes it brilliant. You get pro am and silver drivers mixing it up with true pro teams. It's awesome, and occasionally you get an upset winner. And I don't mean that they're mad. I mean you get a win upset, and it's fantastic to see a pro am team on the top step of the overall podium. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about multi-class racing as well, especially when we don't have equal machinery, when we have GT3s versus GT4s, it's completely different styles of racing in a way. Traffic becomes a legitimate factor for the leading teams, and that is McCall making a spot, and I believe that was Mulholland in the 782 going slightly wide on the final chicane, losing 2 places.
Oh, here we go.
And it's Bentley on Bentley going down into turn 1. Mulholland has the Citroen, did get a good exit out of the final turn, going side by side. Will have the outside going into turn 1 very late on the brakes. And they get a better exit going down into turn 2. Turn 2 would give them the inside, but not able to make anything of it. And settling down into a position, and kind of just lost the opportunity to get back through. And I said in qualifying, Jesse, that chicane will catch people out, and it appears to be doing just that.
Yeah, you couldn't be more right, Josh. It does. I mean, this is a very technical track, the Nurburgring. You don't usually think of that when you think the Nurburgring. I think most people think of the Nordschleife, but this is completely the opposite of that. A modern F1 circuit. You can say what you want about Tilke, but this is probably one of the better F1 circuits. Uh, Maybe not for F1 though. I tend to enjoy anything from DTM to BLN to well, the GT Challenge here. Oh, and also the European Truck Racing Championship. Love it when they race here. They talk about drivers getting their elbows out. How about driving a 2-ton race truck around this circuit, going side by side in the chicane? I love it. It is this track. It certainly does favor some cars more than others, but it is brilliant nonetheless. Ola Pitchik in the 141 out front with the Team Ballas Ukraine car. It's all going to plan steady as she goes. They took the lead on lap 1, turn 1, and have not looked back. They've been challenged a few times, but they've always been the winners of those challenges by just being smooth and steady out in front. They hold a 2.4 second lead over sets in the 70. But that gap is coming down. That gap was nearly 4 seconds at one point. Now it's 2.4. And I was doing the math. If they can keep this up, they need a tenth or two a lap. They will catch the leader. But for those of you that are with us earlier, you would have heard me say that earlier with the 73 car. And they got there, and then they ran a bit wide as Junior McCall left the door open here. Radijak trying to go through the door as the defensive line does, Junior McCall, but is it enough? Oh, little contact there, got loose. Did the 44, no harm, no foul, but that car definitely got loose, but position lost as Radijak in front of the 44. This pack right here has been very exciting to watch. Look at this, Josh. 44 just gets loose here.
Yeah, it just hits the inside curb and unsettles the car just enough. And I think that might legitimately be the first mistake I've ever seen from Junior, and that resulted in a position being conceded. So I can't imagine that he'll be wanting to sit behind the Bentley for too long. And anyway, the number one Bentley does have that 5-second time penalty as well. So in the closing stages of this race, they don't technically need to overtake. Just stay within that 5-second buffer. But that's not going to be easy when you have the 782 of Mulholland, who was leading this small pack of cars after making a mistake a few laps ago, breathing right down their neck. So it's not going to be the easiest of tasks in the world to keep the car straight and true and take it to the end and staying within that 5 second. And speaking of that 5-second buffer, I believe a 5-second penalty has just popped up in the way of that 44 AMG.
Right, you are, Josh. 5-second penalty for car 44. Dive bomb causing causing a contact during an overtake with the 784. That's the overtake we saw earlier, the sin. And I wondered if, because they gave a penalty earlier for a similar thing to the one, if they would give it to the 44, and they have. The stewards remain consistent. So a 5-second penalty for a dive bomb overtake with contact there. Racing incident between the 722 and the 3. No further action between the 100 and the 1. Minor contact, nobody loses position. No further action between the 100 and the 1. Minor contact, no further action there. No further action between the 782 and the 44 for minor contact. No further action between the 100 and the 1 for a near miss. Don't see that very often. And a warning for car 100 for excessive dive bombing on the 44. I was wondering how they would do that too with Willamont, if they would give him a warning or something for his lick the stamp and send it, and they did. Didn't give him a penalty, but they gave him a warning. By the way, got some fans of the 100 team in chat. Hashtag remove the 132nd penalty. We're not going to do that because that wouldn't be fair. But I'll put it to you, folks at home, let's play a little game. We're going to play a little game here. We all know that Grant Willamont won this race. If he can continue for the next 22 minutes, it won't show up on the stat sheet that he won this race, but he is going to cross the line first. It is an unfortunate circumstance. They didn't satisfy the rule requirement, therefore they will be penalized for that. But I think we can all agree Grant Willamont has dominated this race in high silver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any denying that. I don't think anyone can deny that. I mean, Willamont has driven the race of all races, really, all things considered, and considering their class and their position. And I'd have no problem giving anything like a Driver of the Day award to the 100. I mean, it's a team effort. I think we're giving Willamont a lot of credit, and Willamont has been the driver to pull the car out of the spot. But at the same time, it is a team effort. It takes two drivers to get the car where it is, and that team as a collective has done, I don't want to say flawlessly, but has done amazingly this entire time through.
Well, Grant accruing penalties, but he will care very little about that. What this will do is this will give the win to the 722 of Serafini Danesi. They've got 3.5 seconds on Strappa in the 185. I'm getting deja vu from when me and Stewie called Bathurst, where Strappa was dead last at one point. I'm not talking about in his class. He was dead last in the race in the 185. It may have been his teammate, but you get my point. And then they drove all the way back to second place on the final lap, took the lead coming through the chase to win in grand fashion. Whenever we're done here tonight, please go back to last week's race and watch the final 5 minutes of that race. I literally almost pass out.
I mean, given your dues, Jesse, that does seem to be a weekly occurrence. I mean, the racing is exciting, and I wasn't here for last week, but I've watched it over, and you're right. It was amazing.
Got some Carbon Sim Sport and Volante fans in the chat. Love to see it. By the way, I love to say that. By the way, Sets is By the way, Sets is 1.5 seconds behind Pitchick for the race lead. I'm not cueing the Jaws music just yet, folks, but we're getting there, and so is the number 70 Volante racing car. And it is going to be deja vu for the 141. Do you think they care, Josh, is my question to you. They have the lead in the championship, 30-some points over the 70. If they did finish second today, would Team Ballas Ukraine actually care?
At this point in time, I'm not too certain. I mean, we've said before, and the one thing we've praised the 141 guys for has been just outright consistency. I think at this point in time, they've been able to establish such a kind of a presence. And at this point in time, they have to be in the other guy's head, right? Like, when you're on track, even if you're ahead of your rival, So you got to be looking out the windscreen, looking at your car, thinking, "Well, this isn't just anyone." It's like these are the guys we've been fighting this whole time, and it does let you. We're talking about the psychology behind racing, and it's certainly got to leave a mark. So, and the 141 guys are going to know this. They're experienced enough to pick up on what's going on. So, yeah, no, I think you're right, Jesse. I don't think they're going to care too much.
Well, the 722 Serafini Danesi will likely go on to win this race in high silver, but Strappa and the 185 team are going to continue to win the war. 722 has either missed races or had some very terrible races. And Strappa will likely finish second and do nothing but grow his points lead on the 95 and the 100 with whom he is racing for the championship. So I'm going to plan for the 185 and the 141 here in this race again. And it's not always looked like that. It looked like the 141 was going to get passed early. The 185 went to last for the second week in a row. But good teams respond.
Yeah. I mean, I could not agree with you more there, Jesse. And speaking of Grant Willamot and how we've been talking about this team and singing praises, sticking still onto the back of the pro Bentley number one, and 17 minutes left of the race. It's still possible, more than possible, to make something of the situation.
Well, we are entering just about the final 16 minutes of this race as this pack continues to accrue penalties and also capture the heart of the chat. The stewards are not as impressed with some of the driving from this group, Josh, I've been told, but that's fine. We are. I agree that, for some of the moves, they were a bit dodgy and all that. I absolutely agree with the stewards on that case. But you can't argue with it being very interesting television.
No, you can't. I mean, it's a sort of racing that we come here to sit and, to watch. And I think if it was all uniform, and I think if it was all by the book and all kind of predictable, it wouldn't have the charm that it does. We've said it on the stream before. We love a good controversy. And speaking of a controversy, are we about to see one coming up now? This is the Bentley getting through the Ferrari turning in just a little bit and losing out to the Pole City car. I believe that is the 199.
He's going around the outside.
Yeah, just Porsche things. It's okay. But but looking at things, the Porsche does seem to be very, very quick in the first sector. Going down into turn 3, taking a look on the inside, was able to hit the brakes just enough to avoid contact. And again, we've seen that happen so many times. Guys that running the race solo has been running now for an hour and 45 minutes against a fairly fresh in comparison GoPro. And I think it's only a matter of time until that Porsche finds a way around, Jesse.
Yeah, I think you might be right. On the attack is GoProv in the 199. Strangely giving him the inside there for a moment, but of course the inside becomes the outside of the hairpin. Not the worst thing in the world being the outside of the Dunlop hairpin, but it is on this particular occasion as GoProv has to settle there. Oh, thinks about making a move into the S's, thinks better of it, falls back in line, and goes through the S's there. And still single file. Sizek still wondering what happened about a half a lap ago. Meanwhile, GoProv's like, I have gained a position here. I'm looking to gain another one. And he knows actually, and again, probably slightly frustrating. Geisler is having the same issues that Willamont is having. By the way, Radijak has gotten by Willamont, but Geisler has the same problem. Doesn't have a teammate here. Will be getting a 130-second penalty. And that does nothing but frustrate Max GoProv, who still has to get around him.
Yeah, to catch the rest of the field does need to, and I did have a suspicion that this might happen, that the Porsche is just so aero dependent that as soon as you get caught in traffic, it becomes, even though it can be the quicker car, it becomes so difficult to get by. Speaking of which, the 141 leaders, the ones that were running away with it, the ones that we said
Uh-oh!
the 70 has in fact caught up within half a second now. This is within strike. We've seen
That was a mistake, Josh. That was a mistake. They had more than a second, sector or 2 ago. So there's no way you lose that much time unless it was a mistake.
to be fair, from what we were saying earlier, we know that that 141 car does not usually make mistakes, especially one as major as what must have been to allow that 70 Bentley to catch up. And there's only 10 minutes or so of the race remaining, between 10 and 15 minutes of the race remaining. So, I mean, Jesse, do you think this is going to go down to the wire?
Yes, the short answer is yes. The 141 is probably going to defend here pretty heavily and give them the outside on a lot of corners, dare them to go around the outside. By the way, Tom Bryant, we had a rare moment occur here, so get your bingo cards out for RCI rare moments. Penalty for the 199 has been amended. It was a warning, but it was up to a 5-second penalty for the sake of consistency from lap 32 incident. So that warning was up to a 5-second penalty based on consistency for that type of penalty. It was a dive bomb, by the way. Again, the Steward's trying to be as consistent as possible with dive bombs, and they had originally gave it a warning, but now up to a 5-second penalty. Let's see here. No further action, minor contact between the 44 and the 1. A warning for car number 1. And of course, racing incident between the 837 and the 501. So the Stewards might not be happy that they're racing each other like that, but they're still letting them do it.
I mean, I mean, within certain parameters, they do have the power to put an end to this. And again, that's GoPro involved in a little bit of a rub there with Geisler. There was a flash from Geisler. I'm not entirely certain as the car went around. It might just been the angle of the lights, but again, I can't imagine we'd be too happy with that. Maybe leaving just enough space. On the fight for first place, though, that gap has shrunk from the timing sheet. It was 0.4 of a second. Now it's 0.2. Now Seitz is right on the back of Ola Pitchik, who is. As we said, the Ballas team, they had a fairly easy race for most of it, and it was just finally, having to work for it. No, it looks like the 70 missed the braking spot just a little bit. That could have been a lot nastier than it was, but luckily the cars did avoid contact. But that will have put the 70 Bentley, that will have cost them a little bit of time. But for how long? How long do we think that might be the case?
We're going to bring you one final incident before we tuck into the end of this race, I think. Racing incident between the 837 and the 199. And that's from that group right around 5th place. They're all racing each other really hard, and most of which is completely fair. I think the Steward's biggest issue, of course, is with the major dive bombs. Speaking of that particular group, this is the most recent racing incident, I'm pretty sure. Shading to the inside, to the outside, Dorian Geisler doing everything they can, and then nearly running out of racing room was the 199, who has since gotten through there, of course. Robin Baugh, we haven't talked much about the 8 team, the Dangling Wing racing team, as they've been a bit frustrated this entire race, down in 12th place now. Looking for 11th, but on a position that doesn't pay them extra points. It just... try to get all you can here at the end of the race. Oh, and I think I can already see what the issue with the Dangling Wing Porsche is. A little loose.
Yeah, I mean, the Porsche is notoriously difficult to drive. Some would argue the engine's in the best place. Some would argue it's in the wrong place. But it has the advantage. The reason why the Porsche has the engine in the back, it puts the weight over the back wheels, and in theory gives you much more grip to reach the limits of the car. But as soon as you do reach that limit, that weight becomes a pendulum and likes to swing you around. And some people love the Porsche, some people hate it. It's always been a strong car, and it seems to be every time we see one, it is stuck in traffic. But speaking of stuck in traffic, Sainz
Oh dear.
still trying to find Sainz still trying to find a way around Pitchick. But Pitchick, the Ballers guys don't have the result streak for a reason, or for no reason. And Pitchick definitely showing Sainz, he's not just going to roll over and let him have it. He's got to, Sainz has got to work for this one.
I love this. You've got Chris Melbourne in chat cheering on Oliver Sets here, cheering him on. Come on, you can do this. And he's done it. 4 seconds was the gap about 40 minutes ago. It's now nothing. You can see the back of the Ballas Ukraine team's car. And this is as close as anyone has gotten all day. The last time anyone got anywhere near this close, it was a bit of a moment that led to them losing several seconds. Sets cannot afford that. There is no time to come back from this. It's either you pass him or you don't. He might be a bit patient here, knowing that he must be quicker, Sets, on Pitchick, because he caught him at a pretty incredible clip. So you have to be somewhat patient, but you also have to be aware of time running out. You're probably only going to get a couple of legitimate opportunities to make this pass, Josh. Where do you like him? Where do you like an overtake of this variety? Do you favor the surprise, or would you rather just wait for them to make a mistake?
I think waiting for a mistake. I think if you surprise a driver at this stage in the race, especially running for first and second, if any surprises, any wrong moves, and that's both of you out of the race. So I think if I was the driver in this situation, it's definitely waiting to capitalize on something. Try to get as close as possible. I mean, look at that. I mean, the second time we've seen that now. That Sainz just sort of missing the braking zone almost, diving straight in, and very lucky to avoid contact. Very lucky there was far enough back. But I think if it was me in that position, it is a case of pile on the pressure, try to force the mistake, and then as soon as the mistake happens, try to capitalize, but make sure that there is a legitimate opportunity there. And we've seen a lot of dives in this race so far, and penalties have been awarded for them. So I don't want to be another statistic, so to speak. And in the closing stage of the race, 6 minutes and 20 seconds left. Seems like the 141 has kind of got a bit of a move on. And again, we are seeing the 70 making a few mistakes here as well. So it's a question of, at this point in time, Jesse, how far gone are these cars? Like, how chewed up are the 70s tyres in the hunt to catch up to the 141?
They've got to be somewhat, because they've certainly been pushing. The 141, Wallace, they're smart. They're not going to ruin their car or their tires. They're very methodical, very calculated. And I think the 70 has definitely been in the chase. Volante, knowing that to win this championship, they have to get by the 141. They've proven that they can do that in the past, and today this could be huge going into the final few rounds of this championship. Even if it's only 7 or 8 points that they would gain here from making this pass, this is really important. That's 7 more points you don't have to get next week or the week after that. I cannot overstate how huge this is. Also, how crazy it is that we have 2 Bentleys up here fighting for the lead. Looking down the inside, his Sets doesn't make the move this time. Wasn't quite there. Settles back in order. I'll tell you what, if the 70 has ran its tires a bit more than the 141, you wouldn't know by looking, because they have absolutely been able to hang on every single turn with the leading Ballas Ukraine team. So it comes down to this. Ballas Esports Ukraine versus Volante Racing for the win here, and it could be huge for the championship. These two, the top two, racing each other both in the points and on the track. Folks, it just doesn't get any better than this.
It doesn't, and you're saying it doesn't look like, from looking at pace-wise. Wait, we'll get back to that in just a moment. This is the number 8 Porsche making a move on the Ferrari in the last turn, just getting it wrong. A bit of a tap, sending them round, and looks to be that they slow down to let them by, but then drives off. Are they going to slow down? Yes, they will. They will give that. They will concede that position. And to be fair, that is perhaps the right thing to do. It was a little bit of an ambitious move, but the Ferrari again being caught in tussles left, right, and centre this race, and can't imagine would be all that happy. But speaking of the two front runners, Jesse, as we were just saying there, last lap, Sights was 2/10 quicker than Pitchett coming in, and already caught back up to the end of getting it a little bit wrong into the chicane, catches it but gets a little bit sideways, and that, that gap we were just talking about, it opened up just a tiny bit more. Still 3 minutes left. Still 3.5 minutes left to go. Still, I believe that would equate to 3, maybe 4 laps.
Yeah, it's going to be just about 3 laps. So very quickly, I'm going to do some housekeeping before the end of the race. No further action for minor contact between the 837 and the 199. A warning for the 199 for dive bomb without contact on the 782. Folks, thank you for being with us today. You have been awesome. We appreciate you being with us on your Friday night and making us a part of your Friday night. If you've liked the stream, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing action. We will be back with you on Monday for the continuation of the Lambo Championship. And we would love to see you there. Then we'll back on Thursday for the GT4 Championship, and right here on Friday for the Friday Endurance Championship, continuing for round 7 next week as we finish up here today. A big thank you to our partners, Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. Get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code in the description. And like I said, join the Discord. We've got the new GT4 Championship coming up. Signups will be open at the end of the season, and we have splits for you. It doesn't matter if you're a pro or a rookie who just started racing. We have a split that you can be comfortable in and get racing immediately. We would love to have you. Final 2 minutes of the race here. Here is the stakes. Team Ballas Ukraine holds a 30-plus point championship lead over the 70. It is the 141 versus the 70 in the race today. It's a 7-point swing, 7 or 8 point swing either way. This could be a 40-plus point gap or a 20-something point gap. That is what's at stake here. The 70 needs to get these points coming into the final few races. The 141 has been so consistent, you can't count on them making a mistake. So if you can beat them, you have to try to beat them. White flag, last lap.
So all this planning and preparation coming down to this, not an awful lot of time to get this move done if you are Sights currently right now, and I'm kind of glad that I'm not, because that is a lot more responsibility than I'd like to be dealt with right now. Number 8 Porsche still trying to find a way around the Ferrari and going down into the S's, and it's not quite going to be close enough to make a move. Maybe going into the maybe going down into, I believe it's turn 10 if memory serves. And yeah, and just not close enough to make anything meaningful of it, and almost looking at it getting very loose there as well, almost like losing the back end. But luckily kept it on the road, and a gap starting to form between the 501 and the 8. But I think the question is, what is the gap between? The gap between Goprov and McCall, making a move down into turn 1. Last chance to make anything happen. Going down on the outside. We've seen it happen before. Can they get the switchback? Can they get the inside line into turn 2? It's all a potential, but I don't think it's going to happen this time around.
Meanwhile, the 141 and the 70 continue. They're just about the same amount away from each other as Goprov nearly makes contact with McCall there, but avoids it, gets on the binders. Coming up the back straight for the final time are the leaders. And here it is. One final shot, one more chance to make the move. Will the 70 do it? I think he's just a little bit too far behind, but if he gets enough space here, he might be able to make an inside move, but he didn't. He didn't get enough space. The 141, Ala Pitchik, Ballas Ukraine are going to win again. Their second win of the season. It's going to be close, and the camaraderie between the two teams is evident. Excellent job, excellent sportsmanship. Ala Pitchik and Ballas Ukraine, your winner again here at the Nurburgring. Oliver sets a brilliant second place. Came out of nowhere halfway in that race to finish second, and an excellent job at that. Only about a quarter of a second behind. How close do you like it? Meanwhile, Garbus, who has had a very quiet race in the 627, ran 4th in the first hour, will come home 3rd in an excellent job themselves. just a nice workmanlike day for them. Garbus in the 627 third here today. We, of course, are following this battle, but Radajak will finish fourth after all the troubles of the one, will still get fourth. An excellent job. Grant Willamont will come across the line and win high silver here today, though he will not get to keep it as he has a massive penalty. Contact here between Ba and... No, just a pass. No contact yet. And they're good. Just a pass there. Last lap pass for position. Robin Ba getting by Sizek in the final lap. Excellent stuff. Like I said, Grant Willamont won high silver, or at least was first across the line, will be displaced by Serafini Dinesi. The 722 will be the official winner here today in high silver over Strapa in the 185. And after all of the trouble, Sam Smeets in the 95 will likely finish third, as all results are unofficial. But we can tell you that is how we see the results panning out. What a wild race. It was so much of the 141 just living under pressure, never had more than a few second lead. And here are the results confirmed. The 141 winning the race over the 70 and the 627 is your final podium positions. You have the 1 and the 782, the top 5. Junior McCall in 6th place in the 44 and the 199. Dobrov in 7th. Then you have confirmed your high silver winner, Serafini Dinesi, in the 722 AMR. They just never gave up. They kept their heads down, and they were rewarded with a win today. Excellent job. The 501 with 9th. 2nd place in high silver, the 185, with Strapa on at the end. After the rough day they had, again, another good finish for them. They look unstoppable, to be completely honest with you. Behind them, of course, Ba in the final podium spot in high silver, the 95 of Smeets and Scheckerman getting rewarded for their perseverance. Behind them, of course, the results confirmed. The 107, the 100, the 837, the 3, the 404, who did not finish, and behind them, of course, the 73, the 911, and the 56 did not finish this race. While we have a moment, let's go talk with our winners. Ala Pitchik and Dominic Koroshavin, another win, number 2 on the season, your 4th podium. Guys, you had to work for that one.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. This race was just a blast. I don't know. I had a great start. On the first corner, went for the overtake the Porsche because I knew that was critical. We had to pass him as fast as possible. So after that, I tried to build a gap from the guys behind me, but the McLaren was pushing quite hard on me, but still he was making some mistakes that didn't allow him to close on me. So I finished my stints like 3 seconds in front of him. And after that, Oleg did an amazing job defending from the Bentley behind of us. I think that was really a stunning drive. It was so intense, and wow, that was just a pure enjoyment from him.
Pitchik, I gotta ask. You see Koroshavin be hunted by the 73. You get in the car, and then all of a sudden you're being hunted by the 70. Was it deja vu in the car at all? Like, did you get any advice from Koroshavin, who had dealt with that previously, or what was the mindset in the 141?
Oh, after our pit stop, I didn't expect to have such a tough battle because I have a gap of over 4 seconds. But then Bentley number 70 just started to close this gap, and at the end of the race was on my tail, on my bumper, and it was tough, it was difficult, but we noticed that Bentley behind number 70 was fast entering the corners, but not so fast exiting the corners. I have an advantage on exiting the corners, and Dominique told me that and just said, just do your job, don't make mistakes, and he could not get enough close to you to make an overtake.
It's just a brilliant job. Boys, you've got a 40-something point lead. I'm not entirely sure how many it is, but it's 40-something point lead over the 70 now. 2 races left to go. How comfortable are you guys now knowing that you're probably the favorites to win this championship? You think you can bring it home?
I think we can hope so, but I wouldn't hurry up. So we have 2 races left, and our task is just to win them to become champions. But I think it's too early to think about it, because we have to think a bit more about the upcoming races, not about the championship. So yeah, we have to target a win for the next race.
Yes, we will
Excellent, I love
focus for the next 2 rounds, and just to try, just we'll try to do our best and to show a good result. That's all.
I absolutely love the mindset. Josh, you got anything for our winners?
I mean, I think the only thing to really kind of take away from is, you guys have been massively consistent this entire time through, and I think it's something that we brought up at some point on the stream, and I think it's something that a lot of people would claim to know the answer to, but you guys seem to do it best. Would you say it is more important to be the fastest car all the time out there on the track, or do you think that it's more important to follow up with that kind of consistency, even if it comes at the cost of speed?
I think the most important thing is to be fast and consistent, But if you
Yeah,
can,
the combination of 2.
yeah. But if I will choose, I think the consistency is more important, because you can finish all the time on the second, third places, but still, if you are gathering those points, like, there are more higher chances to score a bit more, to finish in the higher position in the championship, than win 1 race and then finish a lot of races in the 12th or second, 10th position. So I think, yeah, consistency is the key for the win.
Well, guys, I've said this pretty much the entire season, and I'll say it again. I keep using the same word in reference to what your team is like. You are relentless. You refuse to lose, and even when you lose, you still get a podium, and that is more than good enough. That calculating sort of driving, where you're fast and good, as you say, has led you to this point. 40-something points out in front. 2 races to go, ladies and gentlemen. Your winners of Nurburgring, Team Ballas Ukraine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think we got our answer there, Josh. They're fast and consistent, but I think we knew that based on their qualifying pace and the fact that they stood out front all race long. It was a brilliant race. I can't wait to get done or get around for next week. 2 rounds left to go. We'll be right back here in 1 week's time for the continuation of the Friday Endurance Championship, round 7. Can Ballas Ukraine continue it? Can Volante get another win in the win column as well? We're going to have to find out. But Josh, always a pleasure. Nice to have you back.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. It's been a hectic couple of weeks, but no, it's good to be back in the box, Jesse.
Well, in 1 week's time, we will be at Nurburgring on the 15th of October. We end the season at Donington, but before that, join us back on Monday for the continuation of the Lambo Cup. You'll find that right here. All you got to do is subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll be notified when we go live. And on Thursday, the continuation of the GT4 Championship. And you'll see Josh, Stewie, and me back here on Friday night. No Night Owl this weekend or for the rest of this Night Owl season due to broadcaster restraints. Thank you all for watching. We hope that you enjoyed tonight's show, and we certainly did. We'll see you in 1 week. Have a good weekend.